All right. What's good, people? Hope everybody's well. Apologize about the little break. Never like to be too long away from y'all. Just had a lot going on. What's up, brother Sarah? See you in here. Christopher, Ian. Shout out to Ian. Appreciate that work, man. Always notifying people on what's going on in the chat. Good brother Mark. What's going on? Donnie Indigo. What's up? The Geek Underground. Chef Mike. Brother Damon. It's good, people. Good to see people in here early. Yeah. So we trying to get it in. Just drop a few words. What's up, Spain man? Frankie. I'm going to be inviting people up. BGS in the house. What's going on, man? So I hope a little bit later in the broadcast, some of you guys will come up and share your opinions. I'm sure there are quite a few. We've heard quite a few, and there needs to be. That's a good thing, because for so long we haven't heard Black men's thoughts entertained and on any serious level. And instead of waiting for people to authorize us to have thoughts worthy of being heard, Black men kicked in the door and decided we're going to talk to each other and we're going to talk to the world. And we don't give a damn if you like it or not. So I'm glad to be at a point in life where I can appreciate this, witness it, participate in it. And you brothers inspire me at every turn. Shout out to Kay for that support. He says, hey, Dr. T, don't stay up too late. Oh, man, my son has been driving us to school. He got a permit, so I got to get up with him at like, 6 something. I ain't used to that schedule no more. Anyway, so that's been it adding to all of this. And you want to talk about fear, man. And riding the car with a 17-year-old driving for the first time, man. Anyway, that's it. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the show if you will, so that we can continue to bring you independent Black male thought about all kinds of issues. So please make sure you do that. And in particular, please make sure you support the ventures that brothers on here are getting into. Namely, my latest is the Onyx Network, right? This is basically, a new channel that I have up on Roku, Amazon Fire TV. You can download it on your iPhone, your Android, and you can check the channel out. And right now, I'm playing a number of episodes, of course, from the Onyx Report, because there's no copyright issues with that. But some of the brothers have been very kind and offered me the opportunity to broadcast some of their work. So shout out to Brother BGS. He was the first to volunteer before I even really asked. I was so, overwhelmed with trying to get everything started that, people offer you help and you like, I don't even know what to ask you for yet. Like, that's where it is. And BGS, was the first one to go there. So much appreciated. Green Gorilla did the same. Shout out to him. Obsidian offered as well. Shout out to Obsidian. Shay Charday, We Need to Talk, Alan Obi, a number of brothers allowed me to at least, if nothing else, play the shows that I was on. So there's a number of shows from us on there. And if you're a content creator, holla at me if that's something you want to entertain. We can go there and talk about that. But at the end of the day, we need to support what each other's doing. That's what it comes down to. Support each other's content, support each other's ventures. And with this one, you can also support. You can go to Patreon. You can see all the information on the screen, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. Of course, we have the infamous Super Chat, but you can also go to Patreon. You can support the Onyx Report. You can support the Institute for Black Male Studies, or you can support the new Onyx Network with a monthly donation. So check that out. But this is what we're doing. We're trying to get it in. Shout out to M. Johnston for the support. Says, thanks for covering this topic. No doubt. So we're going to go there and get some of this in. Artisan in the house. What's up, man? He just did a video on the latest She-Hulk, which I have not watched yet, but I try to sit through it just to stay aware of some things. So check him out. Support him. Make sure you support the Green Gorilla. Some of you in the chat were talking about his epic rant, and I don't know why people are tripping. He does that on a regular. So check out the Green Gorilla channel. But I think BGS on his Gnostic channel posted the rant where he deals with some key issues that I argue has had an impact on the Black community for the majority of the 20th century in a devastating way, most particularly to Black men. So support that, check him out, and let's get it. So get into a little bit of this. A lot going on. Oh, one thing before we delve in as well, I would be remiss if I did not shout out good brother Coolio. Rest in power. It is said that the brother passed away in a friend's bathroom. Ambulance was called about 4 p.m. Been seeing a lot of brothers going down at a young age. People speculating as to why. They say this was supposed to have been cardiac arrest. That's what they suspect. I haven't seen any finalized information. If you have, put that info in the chat. A shout out to the brother. I posted, an earlier video I did a couple years ago where he talked about the trauma he experienced in childhood. He talked about, being sexually violated by female family members and the impact it was having on his relationships in the current moment. At the time, I didn't play his voice. I was really kind of still, navigating YouTube, but I did read some quotes from him, and that should be pretty easy to find once you watch the episode, kind of see what I'm quoting. But the brother was courageous, shared, a lot about his life, and did so in a manner that I think is helpful to other Black men and boys. So more than just the music, the man put himself out there, so people could learn from his life experiences, and I can do nothing but salute that. So salute to that brother Coolio. Sorry to hear that he passed, and I hope that you all will extend some grace to him and his family in regard to that. Because there's been way too many, man, in the last couple of years alone. It's been ridiculous. So, but if nobody else is really going to honor the death of Black men, we need to, because one of the things I think it important to point out. Let's see here. Now here, this is kff.org. Just look something up very, very, very briefly. You can find more in-depth information on this, but I was just glancing at life expectancy. So I thought this paragraph was particularly interesting. It says, at birth, Black people have a shorter life expectancy compared to white people. Life expectancy at birth represents the average number of years a group of infants would live if they were to experience throughout life. The age-specific death rates prevailing during a specific period. Provisional data from 2020 shows that overall life expectancy across all racial/ethnic groups was 77.3 years. Life expectancy for Black people was only 71.8 years compared to 77.6 years for whites and 78.8 years for Hispanic people. Life expectancy was even lower for Black males at only 68 years. So this is dated this year, January 2022. Right. So as we look at, the life expectancy issues, the early deaths of many Black men, don't get it twisted. It's happening with key individuals much younger than others, but on par, Black males tend to have some of the lowest life expectancies. I'm sad to say too, I've had some updates on my system that I did not warrant. So if I have any problems going on, definitely let me know. If there's anything happening with the stream or the sound. I hope I cleaned out all the bugs, but sometimes you don't catch it till you're in the middle of it. Anyway, so brothers out there, be mindful of your health, get checked out, do what you got to do. I can't say that his death didn't have an impact on me. I recommitted myself to get back into it just because life is too short for us, man. We got too much to do. So that said, shout out to brother Coolio, and let's take care of each other, man. Even if it's just a call to see how we doing, monitor that stress level, find ways to release, rehearse whatever it is that brings you peace. Do it on a regular basis. Anyway, so, you know, last few days, I've been hearing everybody talking about this Ime Udoka situation, and there have been a number of things that have taken place with it worthy of conversation, right? One of the things that's been hot very for early on when I first heard about it was, of course, his, infidelities in the workplace, as I understand it. And some of you are far more up on this. I mean, you guys are on a minute to minute basis with information. So I do hope, like I said, you'll come up a little bit later and share what you know, cover what I didn't, fill in the gaps, so on and so forth. But what I understand is it's rumored that he had one, if not two, affairs at the workplace, one of which was said to have been the wife of a VP for the Celtics, right? So my understanding is he's been suspended for a year. Many don't believe he'll ever sit in the head coach box again or chair again. Um, you know, that's what I understand to be the case. And even though the relationships were consensual, from what I understand, there's still question about policy for the Celtics and what they regard to be proper behavior for their employees and whatnot. And of course, the coaches and higher ups are supposed to lead by example. So he's being punished, for that, engaging in a relationship. And as far as I know, last article I read about it, he was found out apparently by one of the higher ups who was watching or listening to his wife through his Ring security system and heard a very intimate conversation that led to some probing and, of course, the reveal. Again, this is something that some of you guys might know more than I do, but that's what I heard. And of course, people were frustrated, about him being with Nia Long, actress Nia Long, darling of the Black community in film, especially after Love Jones, The Best Man, a couple of key films that she's known for. You can go back to Friday. She's had an extensive career in that respect. Still very pretty, cute. You know, um, she is in her early 50s, from what I understand. And I'll be honest. My first response when I first heard it was, I wouldn't be surprised if, she was engaged. She was dealing with menopause. Really wouldn't. Really wouldn't be surprised if he might have been a bit sex starved. Now that isn't to blame her because I don't have that information. It's just my suspicion. But either way, doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, he did it. He's being punished for it. Um, Most of the people I've heard talk about this aren't upset that he's being punished. It's some more details around it, and that kind of is, that kind of is part of the issue. Um, and it kind of bled into other issues having to do with Celtics policy, who should get blamed, who should get punished, are women to be believed and unpunished even when they participate in, acts that go against company policy, inappropriate acts that he's embarrassed for publicly, but nobody else has to be. Is that just? Is it right that that happened? Even extending into women at ESPN. Bernard Riley did a incredible, it was only like 5 or 6 minutes too, but an incredible spot this morning. I shared it on my community tab on YouTube, where he talked about, what he called the unhostile takeover of ESPN. Brilliantly done, really well done. Kind of broke down the way in which, feminism is starting to shape company policy about who they hire, how quickly they make it up to, the big chair, as it were, and whether or not some of the people who are ready to be in that chair and whether or not that's being abused in a particular way. So if you've not heard it, go check out Bernard Riley's Unhostile Takeover of ESPN right here on YouTube. It's very short, to the point, but raises some very interesting questions that need to be reflected upon. Right. So almost 370 people watching. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the show, please. Gregory, shout out to you for the Cash App. Much appreciated. All right. Anyway, so number of things going on around that, and we're going to delve into a bit of those, a few of those things. Kind of get some opinions from y'all about where this situation is and where you think it should be. Right. So that said, let me go ahead. All right. So because my system has been so unwieldy, What I'm going to do is ask you guys, if I play something for a quick second, to put 1 in the chat if you can hear it, put 0 if you can't. I'll play a little bit of music right now. Tell me if you can hear it. Okay, so let me know if you could hear that. I just played a few seconds and I stopped it, but I'm trying to make sure that my system is complying. Okay, so I got a couple of 1s. All right. Yeah, from what I understand, Neil Long's been pretty quiet about it. All right. Okay, so we're going to play a little bit of the clip. Now, this is actually something a lot of brothers have talked about, but I need to get it on the record. And this has to do with the debate that jumped off with one Malika Andrews and Stephen A. Smith. Now, I don't watch a lot of ESPN, so it is what it is. I'm familiar with Stephen A. Smith. I had never heard of Malika Andrews before this, but they had an interesting debate, and let's check it out.
Stephen A., with all due respect, this is not about pointing the finger. Stop. What became apparent to me in this press conference is that we do not have all of the information here, and it was frustrating to me that the Celtics declined to elaborate or to give more specifics about what exactly the rule breaking was that led us to this point. So that I just want to get that out of the way first. But to answer your question, Molly, I think what stood out to me, I think what stood out to me is that Brad Stevens, he was upset. That's what stood out to me about what he termed rampant Twitter BS is the word that he used, that women were unfairly dragged into this within the Celtics organization. You could see that Brad Stevens was visibly upset about this. And I also found that to be gross and unnecessary, that folks were bringing in the names and the images of women that is just not a fact. That was purely speculation. And so to me, that is what stood out. But the Celtics as an organization could have done more, and short of doing more ahead of this yesterday, they could have owned that responsibility in this press conference. I understand that there were legal parameters that they had to operate within for everybody involved, and I appreciate the fact that they brought in outside counsel and did a thorough organization. And I think that that is something that was clearly necessary in this situation. But the fact that it was able to go on all day, the fact that we are sitting here debating whether somebody else should have been suspended or not, we are not here, Stephen A., to further blame women. That is not why we are here.
Now, BGS accurately described this as mommying. So if you don't know, this is Stephen A's show. He talked about same thing some of the other brothers actually mentioned, on one of whom on her channel, that if this is against company policy, why aren't the women being punished? Why just Ime Udoka? And so Stephen A raised the question amidst, arguing that, if you're going to fire, you may fire him, so on and so forth, but be consistent, I think was his overall point. She called into his show to discipline him on air, right? And this is what we're looking at. But, I think BGS's statement, the mommying, of Stephen A, or at least the attempt, is appropriate for the tone she's taking here.
First of all, let me be very clear. I don't appreciate where you're going with that. I'm not blaming anybody but Ime Udoka. He deserves. The fact of the matter is, I've said he deserved to be fired if they were going to fire him. If you're not going to fire him, then don't fire him. My issue is all of this being publicized. The point that I'm trying to make is just like you're not mentioning. Excuse me. I listened to you. You're the one telling me to stop on my show. It ain't happening.
Right.
Okay, that's number one.
Right.
Number two, I've already said he deserves to be fired, or he deserves to be there and handle it internally and privately.
Let me just say, the over talking. Now, this is something that I have a particular sensitivity to because I've seen it most of my life. It's a low key way of disrespecting people. Now, here's the thing on gender terms, right? When you talk about men and women, men often talk about the ways in which, as a subtle diss, women will overtalk you, particularly when they're giving you the mommy tone. And so what he just checked right there, I think inspired a lot of brothers because he was willing to do it publicly and unapologetically. It's something that many of us grapple with, and you try to keep your cool about. But that over talking is a low key way of establishing dominance and actually dissing you at the same time. She had no problem doing it on his show, so he checked her appropriately, and hopefully it'll become something we could talk about more forthrightly, because it's something many of brothers complain to me about, but we don't really talk about it publicly.
If you're not going to handle it privately, if you're going to publicize it in that fashion, then obviously it provokes everybody wanting to know, okay, well, who are the parties involved? When you have Amina Smith in Boston and other women pointing out the fact that there were women who were wrongly implicated in all of this, it's a disservice to them. I didn't come out with the report about a consensual relationship. I didn't come out with the report ahead of time leaking that they were going to suspend him for the year. They did that. And my point is, considering how pervasive this kind of stuff has existed in professional sports for many years, my whole point is that, excuse me, make sure that you handle it in the same fashion it has always been handled. You could have fired him, and then we could have speculated till the cows come home, but he's gone. But to keep him there, keep him employed, but in the same breath, suspend him for a year, then also that year is indefinite. That is the issue that I have. Nobody's trying to protect Ime Udoka, and certainly nobody is trying to protect, is to excoriate the women involved or anything like that. I'm talking about how things of this matter are usually handled from an HR perspective, from an organizational perspective. That is not consistent with what we have seen throughout the years. That is the only point that I was trying to make. I'm not trying to attack anybody. And if anybody deserves to be attacked, it's Ime Udoka for putting himself in this position. I've made that very clear. I'm just talking about, you got owners and everybody else. They know the kind of stuff that's going on. You didn't say anything about anybody else. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about them. They didn't say anything about everybody else all the other times this stuff has happened. But now when it comes to him, it's all over the place. That is my issue. That is my only issue.
Now, he laid his case out pretty well, very straightforward, very unapologetic. Now, when you're dealing with gynocratic culture, right, the question on the table is she going to be humble enough to apologize for mistaking and mischaracterizing his comments and coming in on his show and trying to embarrass him in front of the nation? Let's see.
I appreciate that clarification. And I think that getting back to Molly's initial question, that is what stood out to me from the press conference. My reaction to the press conference, and I appreciate you clarifying that, Stephen A., is that the only thing that was made clear to me in this is that we are missing a key piece of information here. That is my reaction to the press conference.
So she appreciates things. We're missing information. Y'all detect any apology in any of that? Can Black men be apologized to publicly? If you're going to create the discourse and put the disrespect out there publicly, should you apologize publicly? Did she extend that? I didn't hear it. Maybe y'all did. I didn't. But I found a couple other things interesting. Let's see. And a lot of this had to do with the way that Udoka is being characterized. Now, this is probably the second, I think this is maybe the second article I saw dealing with the case, right? It's about the second one. And as you can see, the title, Ime Udoka made unwanted comments toward female Celtic staffer after alleged affair. Now, let me say something. This article is very vague. They don't go into any detail about what he actually, what comments were made and how they were made and anything like that. They don't do it. So it's just left to your imagination that he did these things and they're a problem. And I think what they're designed to do is to give us the impression that he is to be feared. He is dangerous, right? And the reason I say that is because it came out very early on that this was consensual. You couldn't hit him with the narrative so many Black men are labeled with, rapist, sexual assault, so on and so forth. You couldn't hit him with that. But you still had to find a way to invoke these very old ideas about Black men because they resonate with people. So this unclear article about, him extending unwanted comments, what is that even for? Like, what does that accomplish? Right. And you can see, yeah. So this is the only paragraph that deals with it in this whole article. News of the scandal broke on Thursday with reports that the coach had a consensual affair with a female member of the Celtics staff. However, the Athletic reported that the team became aware of the relationship all the way back in July, and it was only after Udoka made unwanted comments toward the woman that the team got involved. Vague as hell. And I think it's actually purposeful that it's vague, because at some point you have to further criminalize him beyond the label we've already seen. I mean, he's clearly being punished. I'm hearing about it from all over, every section of the internet. I'm hearing it and seeing it in the news. This consensual affair that happened with the Celtics. And so I'm finding this interesting, right? Like, okay, so he's being characterized as, kind of badgering, kind of doing something to make her uncomfortable. And that this is a problem, because you can't label him anything directly since it was consensual. Then this one came out today. And I found this interesting, right? This one's coming out on Total Pro Sports, .com. NBA fans being called out for bullying Malika Andrews for days after verbal spat with Stephen A. Smith. Now, I'm just dealing with the title. We can glance through the article in a second, but the title is incredibly important, right? So the title, we're told, is about her being bullied, her being victimized. She's the victim here, right? We're not going to talk about her disrespecting him. We're not going to talk about her being abrasive, with others, other Black men, most particularly, more than anybody else. Seems to be a pattern with her and Black men. I've seen a number of different reports that talked about her behavior with other Black men, particularly players. I actually saw the clip where she argued with a panel full of men who played pro ball about the motivations behind a dunk. And she checked them, she tried to check them as if she ever played. I mean, it was interesting, even to the point of jeering them and, disrespecting them. And they, stayed very professional. I'll give them that. But they really had to check her like, yo, we play ball. But they did it in a very smooth way, right? Because you can't discipline or challenge or check women publicly without fearing blowback, even when they're out of line. I talked about this on Omawale's show. Omawale is here on YouTube, nationalist brother. And he invited me last week to come on a show dealing with this whole issue. I think the title of the show was something like, are Black women's egos out of check or whatever. And I got on the show. And one of the things I noticed, and this is no disrespect to Omawale at all, but the subject I didn't set. I was invited to participate. And the subject was Black women's egos. And this was a part 2. I think they're doing a part 3 if they haven't done it already. But the part 1, the reason there was a part 2 is there was a woman on the panel who actually said, you guys at the end of this discussion have still not talked about Black women's egos. Y'all don't tell us the truth. You're not and she was basically saying, she was agreeing. She was saying, yes, Black women's egos are out of control and we need to hear from the men. And after multiple hours of discussion, the men could not bring themselves to do it. So they did a part 2 and invited me on to participate. And I said it about 4 separate times throughout the whole broadcast. The subject kept changing to Black men's egos, Black men's problems, what Black men are doing wrong. And I said, we've been hearing this for 50 years. It's a broken record thing at this point. Black men are constantly being punished over and over again for the same imaginary crimes. But when the conversation is about Black women, we do not know how to do it. And I'm saying this on a societal level too. We already know women are sentenced 65% less. Their sentences are 65% shorter than men's for the same crimes, because as a society, we don't know how to discipline, check, challenge, or point out female evil. We find ways to make it men's fault. That's what we do. When men make a mistake, it's all men that are the problem. If a Black man makes a mistake, it's all Black men that are a problem. If a woman makes a mistake, it's a man's problem. If a Black woman makes a mistake, it's Black men's problem because they caused it. So when I saw this turn right here in terms of the title, NBA fans being called out for bullying Malika Andrews, no accountability for her behavior. She's a professional. She's a grown ass woman. She can be accountable for her words. Everybody else has to be, most particularly brothers. Why can't she be? Right? Right. So, they talked about she might have the quickest fall from grace in the court of public opinion. After ESPN parted ways with Rachel Nichols last year, Andrews took over, and the move was largely celebrated by fans online. There she is. Pretty, right? But, abrasive, confrontational. A little over a year later, and that fanfare has turned to hate. Now, that's a political term in and of itself, hate. So people can't have a problem with her, a verifiably evident issue with her behavior. It has to be hate. The subtext for hate is like extremists, like skinheads and Klan members. So when you use that term in this context, it invokes other things without them having to publicly say so. So the subtext is this whole big bad man network and all of its crazy rabid male fans are abusing this poor innocent woman. And because she's black and the altercations she's had online was with a black man, hate now is targeted at black men. Not that she might have a problem with anti-black misandry, right? She might have an issue with black men that's unresolved. That couldn't be the problem. The problem has to be the men. So again, women can't be held accountable, right, for their own behavior. Now, I'm going to read through an article, and then we'll go in. So this is a piece that I was sent earlier. Shout out to Sarah, sent me this. Right, Whitlock. So this is a piece by Jason Whitlock, dated today. Malika Andrews will learn ESPN's matriarchal culture kills women, men, and merit. Now, I know even less about Jason Whitlock than I do about Stephen A. Smith, but I've caught a couple of pieces he's done. I've heard about people's opinions of both men, and I just have this thing where, if I shout somebody out that made a good comment, I get, scores of responses about everything this person's ever done for all time. And I'm just like, I didn't say anything about what he did for all time. I said that the comment he made here was good, so that was my thing. But as far as this article, he made some interesting comments I wanted to, kind of look at real quick. He says, soon the relentless social media attack on ESPN broadcaster Malika Andrews' competence and reputation will be inaccurately blamed on the misogyny of black men. Too late. Already happened. Last article I put on the screen. Already happened. Right? Wednesday, Andrews trended across Twitter as users criticized her airing of new Celtics coach Joe Mazzulla's decade-old criminal indiscretions and her failed attempt to publicly scold Stephen A. Smith over the Celtics' handling of Ime Udoka's inappropriate sexual relationships. Right? Andrews, the latest woman king. Oh, shit. That was a pause. The latest woman king to sit atop ESPN's diversity, inclusion, and equity Iron Throne found herself in the same crosshairs that abruptly ended the dynasties of Michelle Beadle, Rachel Nichols, Jamel Hill, Maria Taylor, Kari Champion, and Sage Steele. Forgive me if I mispronounce these names. I'm not, that up on it. There's Jason there. Conventional wisdom says sexism explains why the worldwide leader in sports can't support a woman king the way network backed Chris Berman, Dan Patrick, and Stuart Scott, and now backs Smith. Right? Conventional wisdom is wrong. The arrows slung at Andrews are a consequence of ESPN completely abandoning the meritocracy in favor of diversity, inclusion, and equity. Andrews isn't a victim of male sexism. She's a victim of toxic feminism's creation of woke beta males and a reduction in professional standards. Oh, wow. I like it. Andrews is the ceiling-shattering Marine who was required to do 2 pull-ups, complete 10 push-ups, and run the mile in less than 8 minutes. God damn. All right, y'all. Yeah, he's going in. Shout out to Elia for that support. He says, I guarantee you that if Malika Andrews attempted to check a Caucasian man, that bullying article would have never seen the light of day. hear you. I hear you. I'm sorry that I'm still caught up in the life. Damn. Now, honestly, this is what I was shouting out Bernard Riley for, because he actually went in detail and explained what that's looked like, what ESPN has done to be more inclusive, and how they've actually overcompensated in certain respects in a space that is overwhelmingly male. And I think the questions and comments that Riley, put forth about ESPN could also apply to other genres, most particularly in terms of, some of the, sci-fi material coming out on various networks. I think the same kind of questions could be asked, but let's continue. She's unqualified for her job and everyone knows it. She's an unproven reporter with a resume that qualifies her for an associate producer role at ESPN and a reporting gig at a station in Des Moines, Iowa. Ooh, damn. On a positive note, Andrews' resume is more impressive than the one Beadle used to land a job at ESPN, and it beats Katie Nolan's bartending work. Damn. Oh my God. He said bartending work. Andrews, the 27-year-old host of NBA Today, got her plum assignment as a result of the catfight between Taylor and Nichols. And because she checks every box in the diversity, inclusion, and equity Olympics. She's half black, half Jewish, and plays the love the fruit, hate the tree dating game. Damn. She went to an elite boarding school and worked at her Jewish grandmother's law firm. Andrews was born on third base, but sits on TV acting like Derek Chauvin. Spoiled her blind date with George Floyd. ESPN is so enamored with its bluish princess that the network hired her 24-year-old sister Kendra to cover the NBA as a reporter. Malika and Kendra are the Lonzo and LaMelo Ball of broadcasting. God damn it. He is clouded. I'm sorry. He is clouded. Damn. And look, I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I've never even seen Kendra. I've only seen Malika at work, in the clips I've seen in this last week. So I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm not for or against none of that. So this is interesting to me. More likely, they're Kim and Khloe Kardashian. The Ball brothers earned their NBA contracts. Damn. The Andrews sisters are receiving the rewards of bluish privilege. It'll be interesting to see how long it lasts. ESPN can't properly cultivate, develop, and support female broadcasters because the network's culture is hostile to merit. The animus to merit took root in 1996 when Disney purchased ESPN and blossomed during John Skipper's 2012 to 2018 reign as company president. Skipper oversaw the final transition of ESPN culture from reflecting the values of the sports world to reflecting the values of the Hollywood entertainment industry. Sports reward merit and authenticity. Hollywood rewards scripted diversity, scripted outcomes, and the casting couch. Nothing has damaged sports more than Disney's acquisition of the worldwide leader in sports. It's why competition has been de-emphasized and narrative has been prioritized. Magic Johnson wanted to compete against Larry Bird. LeBron James wanted to win a fictional narrative war with Michael Jordan. Competition left the courts and moved to TV debate studios where broadcasters and jocks cast themselves as groupies and superfans for a particular athlete, team, or city. Beta males dominate sports media. They cry on air. They feign offense at every slight. They mask their intellectual deficiencies and lack of courage with claims of racism. They are as passive-aggressive as teenage girls. They are slaves to the matriarchy. Damn. Shout out to T-Rex for that support. Says you deserve some tap on your patience during the Black Women Ego video. Appreciate that. Time will tell. Appreciate the support. Says Whitlock going hard in the paints. Hashtag nice. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. Says the weakness and emasculation of men explain the backlash to Malika Andrews. She would never have called in to First Take to scold Stephen A. Smith if Smith hadn't surrendered his mind to ESPN's matriarchal culture. Smith irked Andrews because he complained the Celtics did not reveal and discipline the woman or women involved in a sexual relationship with Udoka, I guess. Smith believes in equality. He thinks the Celtics should hold a six-figure behind-the-scenes female employee to the same standard as a male multi-million-dollar front-facing leader. Kendrick Perkins, another ESPN talking head, argued the same thing on Andrews' show. The Celtics justifiably disagree with Smith and Perkins. Perhaps Boston owner Vick Grousbeck, I know I mispronounced that, and team president Brad Stevens are real men possessing a biblical worldview. Maybe they read the Bible. He quotes Luke 12:48, but he that knew not and did not commit things worthy of stripes shall be beaten with few stripes. For unto whomever much is given, of him shall be much required, and to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask the more. American culture is in chaos and collapse because men have surrendered their role as leaders. Women and children are suffering because of our cowardice and irresponsibility. Thanks to ESPN's guidance, the sports world, where men have dominated, has followed the lead of the secular entertainment world. Stephen A. Smith and Kendrick Perkins sound no different from rocker Lenny Kravitz. Kravitz posted a picture of himself on social media Wednesday holding a sign that read, "It's time to turn it over to women." Men have had their chance to run the world, and look where we are. Men who feared God constructed a world that rewarded merit. That's a world I want to live in. This new world, the one run by matriarchs, simps, beta males, and atheists, rewards whatever it chooses on a given day. No one survives long in that world. Just ask Michelle Beadle, Jamel Hill, Sage Steele, Rachel Nichols, Kari Champion, Katie Nolan, and Maria Taylor. And there we go. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. And anybody who's interested in coming up and commenting on this and where you stand, come on up. Link is dropped. We are broadcasting on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and of course, we will be replaying this on the Onyx Network. So come on up. Let's talk a little bit about this and what this means and whether there's any merit to Jason Whitlock's assessment of this. And again, don't have a dog in the fight. Have not seen any of these people in action until very recently. So I know when that tends to happen, opinions tend to lack depth when there's no long-standing, long-term information about this. Shout out to brother Abuki. What's going on, man? Good to see you in there. Shout out to I'm Listening. Good to see you in there. We got Spain Man in here. Mark, what's going on? I'm the America. Cynical Optimist. Right? I'm Listening. What's up? Got a Sarah in the house. News Store. What's up? Art News Store in the house. Come on through. Let's talk about this a little bit. So we got let me see here. Oh, where'd it go? There we go. So let me put some names up there so people know who we are. So is it Achialis? Can you hear me? Uh-oh, you muted. Achialis, are you there? Oh, looks like we might have a problem. You might have to go back out and come back in. 72 Paths. What's going on, man? See you in the chat. Right. Elias says shalom. Peace to you. Come on through. Go ahead and share your thoughts about this. You're welcome to come on up. BGS says ESPN, entertainment and sports matriarchy. Damn. We had two people having sound issues. One went right back out as soon as he came in. Brother, okay, here we go. We got a couple people coming in. There we go. We got brother Ian Graves and brother Sarah. What's going on, y'all?
What's up, brother?
Peace.
Peace. See, Achialis is still here. Achialis, he cut out. All right. So we might have to mute you for a second, Ian, or mute yourself until you talk. Because we're getting some echo. Oh, no. I guess that's Sarah. We might have to mute you for a second, Ian, or mute yourself. Okay, yeah. So the echo's coming from Sarah. Sorry about that, Ian. Ian came through first. So, Ian, drop us a word on your thoughts about this and what's going on.
I mean, essentially, what you're looking at is a hostile. Well, you said a non-hostile, but it is a takeover essentially of black male sports, but basically, essentially, black male life, or I guess I would say black male thought, right? The thought sphere of black men. I was talking to Adam um, Ibmore today, and essentially what is happening. This goes along with the whole move to put these females in these heroic positions in the movies as well. They want to take away any foundation to understand what the context of what heroism is, because essentially black or women see heroism as just the act, but they don't understand there's a wisdom involved before the act takes place. And so essentially what they're doing is they're trying to muddy the waters to where we actually really don't know when it is that we should act, where it becomes a heroic act in and of itself. Because
Mhm.
you can have the same act in two different places, but one is going to be heroic and the other is not, if you're not doing it at the right place at the right time and not making the right impact in that condition. So they want to put these women everywhere, and they want
Mm.
to kind of muddy the waters to where there is no right place for heroism at all. That's
Mm.
essentially what they're doing. They're flattening heroism, so there is
Mhm.
no place for it at all.
This looks to me like part of it, an ongoing mission that we've been hearing about for some decades, to eliminate spaces that are predominantly male. Predominantly male spaces have almost become synonymous with toxic masculinity simply because it's a predominantly male space. Do you think that's happening here?
Of course it is. I mean, essentially, they want to take away all of our spaces as men, because as men, again, this is where we come together and we have our think tanks and we start to strategize as to how we're actually going to move in the world. If they can take away these spaces where we are aligning ourselves and our thoughts, and where men are we're sharpening our swords. Essentially, they're taking away our power, because again, the power is just not in the physical act; it is also in the wisdom. You're right, and the intellect. Because I remember you had a problem with how they were picturing the Black Panther. They took away all of his intellect,
Mm-hmm.
the power of the intellect, and just made him a physical actor. But there's more to the heroicism of men than just the physical act.
Indeed, indeed. Mr. O, come in and weigh in on this. Looks like we keep having people keep coming up and dropping off. Mr. O, why don't you comment on this? What's going on here in your assessment?
Well, my good evening. First of all, to you, Dr. T, and everybody on the panel. My assessment of this is basically they're using the black man as a scapegoat again in media, and basically trying to use the same trope that the B-Dub does no wrong, way, shape, or form. Even when you give her facts, she'll give you opinions, and opinions that doesn't work or benefit us, especially with this tobacco, and also how you broke down the homemade tribe from the Woman King, how everybody what a movie, but
Kind of Borgin. We can't hear you, Mr. O. You cut out.
go ahead and watch it for the sake of a group of people that doesn't know what they want to do with themselves.
Okay. Okay. You cut out for a minute, so we didn't hear like the last 20 odd seconds of what you were saying.
Yeah. I was saying that basically with the Miss Nichols situation, she can't do no wrong, and everybody just going to accept it because I hate to use somebody else's talking points. A black woman is God to them.
Okay. Okay. We got Sarah back in here. He came in early on. Why don't you give us some comments on this? What's going on with it in your assessment?
Well, I did a show about it actually last night, and I played the clip from Stephen A. Smith, and I also played a clip from Kendrick Perkins, where he was on her show, NBA Today, and made the point that his issue was that they didn't address disciplining the woman who was engaged in the consensual relationship. I make the point that the articles that came out initially all said that it was a consensual relationship. So Kendrick Perkins made the point that, well, since it was a consensual relationship and the issue was that he violated company policy, why was she not the woman disciplined? And when the question was asked if there was anyone else being disciplined over the issue, they said no. And so he said that was his issue. Malika then cut him off and were saying, well, we don't have all the information. We have to stay with the study that the law firm did. And he's like, no, I have the information. Now, mind Kendrick Perkins played for the Boston Celtics and still has contacts within the organization. He said, well, I have the information. She promptly cut him off because she wasn't interested in having the information because she had already decided what her narrative was going to be. Right? It's like, Brother Steve Coakley used to say, don't confuse me with the facts. She's not interested in the facts. She had already set her narrative. Right. And, one of the points that I was making on the show yesterday was that this is a typical pattern of employing Black women as weapons to emasculate and undermine the image of Black men. And as Black men, as in this case, though it was a consensual relationship, she took pains to try to paint him as a sexual predator. And as you pointed out in the follow-up article, now they're trying to reframe it to fit that narrative. Right.
And she's being bullied and low-key needs to be protected from these crazy men. And none of her own behavior plays a role in this. Let me get, let's see if Akialis's mic is working. Can you hear us, Akialis?
Yeah, I can hear you, Doc. How you doing tonight?
There we go. Good, man. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Sorry about the in and out. I've got crazy internet connection out here in Alaska.
All right.
Yeah, so
go ahead and weigh in on this.
Yeah, I saw the Bible verses from the book of Luke, and it spoke to me because I'm one of those folks that believe, especially in these times, there should be a reevaluation of biblical hermeneutics or interpretation of the Bible. And, given the issue that we're discussing right now, I was thinking about something that some of the brothers have taught me. I'm actually one of the, what you would call a so-called Hebrew Israelite. So, can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, you're borging a little bit, so you're probably going to need to have to get to it before you cut out.
All right. I'm gonna give it a shot right quick. I'm just gonna give this verse. It's from the book of Isaiah, chapter 3, verse 16. It says, "Moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and walk with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet. Therefore the Lord will smite with the scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts." Okay. I'm sharing that one, but there's a plethora of various other scriptures that we can go into talking about the ego and the pride of the so-called Black woman today. And I know everyone here has a diverse spiritual beliefs or, maybe even biblical interpretations. But I just want to let you brothers know I appreciate what y'all doing. And, I definitely see what you're saying, even from a biblical perspective.
Okay. Well, this is one of the things I want to throw at the panel, and I'm gonna come back to Adam first as I put this up. And this is where I go with this, and I've been saying this the whole time I've been watching this situation with Udoka and then with ESPN. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, we are talking about everything in the world about who this man had sex with and how the network feels about it. And we have completely sidelined this shit here. Now, some of you are some serious sports aficionados. You've been following this much longer than I have. starting with Adam and then opening it up to anybody else. What do y'all think about this? So we got calls for Brett Favre to be removed from Hall of Fame following welfare scandal grow. Any thoughts? Let's start with Adam.
I think it was interesting. I believe, I believe there was a post you had earlier where you brought up Michael Vick and how Michael Vick has been excoriated and castigated for something he did. I mean, so long ago.
Right.
I mean, there's still VSH tapes when this man allegedly, engaged in these actions, and he's been on a tour, for help. He's one of the biggest, animal activists now, animal rights activists. I think he's a member of PETA now. Michael Vick has made a complete change in his life, and people still remember him as the dogfighting guy.
Yeah.
But you have this man who literally, I mean, talk about a PPP scandal. This guy, stole money actually from welfare. I mean, it doesn't get more crooked than that. What happened to think of all the women? I mean, talking about, we want to protect women. I mean, all the women that are on welfare, and their children are deprived because of what this man did, and no one really seems to care. This kind of leads to an idea I've been toying with the whole concept of the social lynching of Black men, right? And how in social science you have labeling theory, which explains why how there really is no crime per se, but just what magistrates and others deem to be wrong, and therefore there's just deviance and non-deviance. And so by applying a label to a person and associating that person with the label, you can therefore, make that person forever a criminal, right?
Like a scarlet letter, huh?
Huh?
He said like a scarlet letter.
Like a scarlet letter, precisely, right? And so what happens is if you can then use that to scapegoat what other people do. And so, when you look at the literal lynchings and legal lynchings we've had throughout history, the social stigma or aspect of it was also important, right? The public humiliation and shaming of the Black man, right? Whether it was a literal lynching and the types of desecration of the living, and then his body after his death, that type of humiliation was a huge part of it and made a big display, and also distracted the people from the conditions that they were living in and what their the leaders in their particular area are doing, right? What they were doing, like what the plantation owners were doing and how much wealth they had relative to the poor whites next to them. The lynching that Black man was able to distract them from the robbery that they were committing against their own people, right? The legal lynchings, even of we look at Bill Cosby, the legal lynching of Bill Cosby distracted America from the from Weinstein and what's that guy's name, Alan, what I'm talking about. I mean, there's a bunch of big white executives and stuff in Hollywood that people were distracted from because of Bill Cosby. They eventually still went after Weinstein, but it was almost 2 years later, right? And so this is a very similar case. The timing is very conspicuous. I can't say for certain that it was done for this specific reason, but in this case, they're not legally lynching him, right? They're not literally lynching him, but this is still has the social aspect of a lynching where he's being paraded around as, and humiliated, largely, in this, it was Woody Allen. There we go. I knew it was Allen something, but in this particular case, it's being used to mask this type of story, because this type of story, I mean, to be honest, I'm being totally honest, I almost forgot about this until you brought it up. Right now, it was successful. Exactly. That's what they're doing. I think it plays a huge part in it.
Okay, we got Marcus in the house, man. If you don't get up in here, man, but I'm gonna open it up to Ragnar, and then we'll open it up to everybody for free for all. Ragnar, give us your thoughts on this.
Hey, does it sound good?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, so I'm a little younger. I'm like 33. So he was speaking to Mike Vick, and I just seen I was on YouTube, and they had like a highlight reel. It was like 14 minutes. Okay. Now, I forget, I don't know what year it was, but I was thinking about this in comparison to Brett Favre. When Mike Vick did what he did, the internet wasn't like it is today. You see what I'm saying? And everybody was talking about it. Everybody was talking about, yeah, he fought dogs. Years later, I found out they were fighting dogs on his property. He actually never fought dogs, if I'm correct on that, right?
Mhm.
And it's just strange to me that
you are correct.
All right, thank you. It's just strange to me that in the age of the internet, where information is so readily, just easy to access, that Brett Favre is not getting the hype that he's supposed to get. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And when Malika got on the show and started getting that, she didn't. It's like she was ready to defend a woman that she didn't know. She didn't know if the woman was married.
Right.
She was just ready to attack this brother, and it's like somebody said in the chat room earlier, like, y'all really hate us, and it's like, I speak for myself, but it's like, why would I love something that hate me like this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like one of the dudes here would say he was an Israelite, and I was a part of an Israelite group for a long time, and they were, like, I was ready to die for my people, for these same women that I'm hearing divested zealot talking about how they getting turned on watching. The first time I seen it was on your channel. They getting turned on watching police bully us, and I'm like, this is really what it is. You know what I'm saying? And it's like they're not even hiding it. She didn't even take a cool approach to try to get at Stephen A. Smith. Somebody saying in the chat room, Stephen A. Smith has always been like easy on the white dudes and hard. Like, people don't even like Stephen A. Smith like that. He's entertaining, but we don't even like him. And you went hard at somebody that we don't even like, and we got to defend Stephen. You making us defend Stephen A. Smith? Congratulations. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like I'm beyond disappointed. Like, I'm done. Like, some of y'all may say I'm grimy, but I don't even help like old black ladies at the supermarket. They be trying to get me to get some on the top shelf. I just keep walking. I just keep walking. Like real talk. Real talk. Like it's not just anger. Like, I'm heartbroken. You know what I mean? Like, I tried to get involved with somebody back in 2020 right before COVID started. And I kept seeing Shahrazad Ali's book, Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman. And I was like, nah, because I was already a part of the MGTOW movement at one point. I was like, I'm not ever doing this again. But I met this girl, and I decided to come out of retirement like an idiot. Basically, after things fell apart, like Minister Jap said, you got 4 months with a Black woman before everything go to shit. Pardon me, right? You got 4 months. And I said, damn, it was about almost 4 months. And I read that book, and I understand why we can't come together and how Black mothers raise their daughters. I was just like, man, I just wiped my hand clean. Like, I seen how my biological mother treated her foster daughter after I read that book. And I said, I get it. She's trying to break this young Black girl's faith in Black men. Wow. Because when she was complaining to her, like, she would complain to me. She said she was going to do this, and she lied, and she's not being fair. She was talking about fairness, a little Black girl. And she this stone cold look came in her eyes, and she said, he can't do nothing to help you. And I got it. Later, she called the police on me for intervening. That's a whole crazy story. The girl was saying, let me go. And because she was messing with the girl all week. And I ended up getting the police called on me, and she lied saying I was going to hit her. So this is what we dealing with. So I want nothing to do with y'all.
So you're seeing it personally. You're seeing it on ESPN. You're seeing it in terms of even meeting women for the first time and contemplating dating it. You're seeing it on different levels and in different spaces, and you just kind of turned you off to it. I want to give Sarah a moment to make a comment, and then we're gonna welcome Brother Marcus in here. Sarah, go ahead and give us your thoughts on something.
In regards to Brett Favre, I wanted to first point out that the Brett Favre issue is not new. The first report I've heard about Brett Favre in diverting these funds came back, I believe it was almost like March of this year. That's when it first came out. And there was sparse media coverage over that then. And to what Brother Adam has said, his charity is supposed to benefit underprivileged individuals and breast cancer.
Okay.
Okay. Now, but the issue was first brought forth back in March. it was only today when I saw that ESPN actually went into doing any extensive coverage over Brett Favre, and I think that actually it was Stephen A. Smith who initiated it. I'm not a fan of Stephen A. Smith either, but he did point out the disparity of coverage between the issue pertaining to Ime Udoka and the fact that they didn't go in on Brett Favre. So they did cover it not only on First Take on Stephen A's show, but all the shows subsequently, NFL Today, Max Kellerman, all the shows when they ended up dealing with the NFL did go in on Brett Favre.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to point out was that when they went in on Ime Udoka and went into criticism over him and his role in that consensual relationship, the only women who they had lead that charge were Black women.
Mm-hmm.
There's a number of white women sportscasters on ESPN. None of them, not even Mina Kimes, who will want to speak on issues as it pertains to sexual abuse by against women. They didn't ask her to comment on it. It all boiled down to Black women leading that attack, just as it was with Gayle King going in on being used as the weapon against Kobe Bryant. Oprah and all the Black men that she has attacked, it's always using Black women as weapons to undermine and emasculate Black men.
Okay.
Willingly.
Right. Marcus, keep it 100. Come on in here and give us some thoughts about this, man.
What up, Marcus?
What's going on, Mr. O? What's up, panel? What's going on, everybody? My man just said a whole lot, man. He just said a whole lot that I had on my mind. How do you pronounce it? Sarah? Is that how you pronounce it?
Sarah.
Sarah. Yeah, you just said a whole lot that that I had on my mind. I just find it funny. I mean, first of all, with all this social media, I care as time goes on very little about what mainstream media chooses to cover, because it's like, okay, long as we keep it alive, we keep it relevant, it's not gonna die. And what I found interesting is, not only the over coverage of the coach, because I don't really. Oh, hold on. Hey, that's my food I ordered, but I'm gonna call them back. But yeah, I'm gonna have to jump in and jump out and then jump back in a second. But yeah, so basically the over coverage that they're giving this man, this coach, they're making it about what he did on the job, and then they bringing the whole Nia Long thing into it, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Like, they're making it this huge spectacle. Then guys are telling me about the situation with the guy that stole some food or something like that, some crab legs or whatever.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I was catching up with you mentally, but go ahead.
Right. So it's just funny how they, not funny, but I mean, we're used to this stuff, man. It's just interesting how they still handle, offenses by, Black players versus, anybody in the organization that's non-Black or white boy, straight up. Mm-hmm. They outwardly, blatantly, overtly protect their own. And this is why, me personally, I mean, it's easy for me not to rock with the NFL because I don't really have any invested interest in football, but I don't rock with the NFL as an organization. I really don't see at this point why anybody does. Now, this is a a media thing on one hand, but then they talk about removing him from Hall of Fame or something like that.
Right.
Right. That needs to happen. I mean, look at what they did with Vick. Look at what they did with, we have countless examples of how they handled people in the past. And
Watson, everybody.
Right. Like you guys have said, I don't think any one of us are full-time fans of Stephen A. But, Stephen A. did say, why is this situation with this black man being given this much publicity? Like, it's not even that serious. I mean, something that happened within an organization. What I do also find interesting is how they're hiding the identities of these women who are also in violation of the rules by dealing with somebody that's employed in the organization. So aren't they all equally culpable in violation? So they're putting this man out on Front Street as the face of the situation, a situation that they could have actually kept on the low. They could have handled it internally. And this is what he said on there. And then, old girl tried to check him on air, and that's a whole other conversation. But it's just interesting how all these things play out. But Sarah said something that, again, I always think when these situations happen is that they use black women as weapons to attack. Right? Because, it's like I always tell these women, when things happen to black women, everybody's quiet, especially if the offender is a non-black or a white man. Like you don't see white feminism coming to black women's rescue when black women are the victims of whether it be white police officer or all these mysterious deaths that these women are experiencing, in the presence of these nondescript white boys. But anytime it's a black man that's in the wrong, or he's he's done some bad thing, they get they black woman attack dogs on black men, and they pretty much do what I would say is a public lynching. But they gonna protect this guy over here, and what he did is way more egregious than what this black man has done. Because it's consensual. You violated company rules, but this man stole a bunch of money, and look where he stole it from. And these coming from the same people who would be against handouts, this, that, and the third. Like it's so many. I'm going in on this tomorrow, but there's just so many places to go with this. That if I went into it, we'd be here forever. So yeah, man.
Brother Marcus, the brother that you were referring to, who was convicted and excoriated in the media over stealing crab legs, was the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints.
Jamison Winston. Nigga lost me a lot of money on FanDuel.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy. And that's small. That's small. In comparison to this.
Well, and so is, dogfighting when you're not even on your own property compared to millions of dollars stolen from welfare that barely gets any news. So it's these kind of things. And the fact that case, as far as the dogs was concerned, was what year was that? And people are still
06. I think 06 maybe.
Yeah,
so, how is that coming up in conversations more than Brett Favre? That's the part So, looking at how black women, see, the way I see it, black women they're being used to absolve the corporation of putting forth these ideas, because they can say at the end of the day, a black woman said it, therefore it's somehow legitimate in a particular way. Because if you put anybody else up there, white male or female, the racial optics look bad.
Right. That's why they use them as weapons to attack the black man. And on a side note, the brother that got promoted to head coach, the interim head coach, while they deal with the suspension of Ime Udoka, is a brother. Malika's already gone in on him, dragging up some issues that he had in his past, like more than 10 years ago.
Right.
That was tactical. They didn't want to put a white dude in after they did that to Ime. That was tactical. You know what black women have become? Remember in the Bible when Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of all of his goods? because he was a good servant. That's what black women have become. Like a white man has put them in charge of his slaves, black men, and they are doing like one hell of a job. You know what I
That's
mean?
what Jeff called them German shepherds for a reason.
Yeah.
And
That illustrates
And they
the
bark
Now let me
and they
get
bite.
AB. Let me get AB Media in here. He hasn't had his chance to say anything yet. AB,
Hey, what's going on, Dr. T?
chime in on this. What's going on, man? Give us your thoughts on
Hey,
this.
well, you see my thought. One of my thoughts on this. If you can't read that, it says, "If you're a welfare queen, please raise your hand."
Okay.
And obviously talking about Brett Favre. As far as the, I could never pronounce that coach's name. Udoku,
Udoku.
Udoku.
Udoka.
I really
Udoka.
don't.
Apologize.
Yeah, I really don't care about him sleeping around, man. Okay, he apparently violated Celtics policy. Oh, okay, whatever. And I heard some other stuff too, but I don't know if it's true or not. If it's true, he needs to be fired.
Right.
But as far as this heifer that went after Stephen A. Stephen A. has been doing sports radio longer than she's been alive,
Mm-hmm.
and she called in there like she was his mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
She lucky that wasn't on the street, because I'm sure Stephen A. would have cussed her out, and rightfully so. She lucky that they were on air, because if they weren't on air, that would have been good.
Mm.
And it's also my understanding is that she has a history of being a troublemaker.
Okay.
So I don't know why she has a job at ESPN, but she has a history of saying condescending stuff. Apparently, she said something about Kobe back in the day.
Oh, really?
Okay.
I haven't looked it up, but somebody said she actually said something about, tried to say something about Kobe, and this chick has a history of saying snarky stuff about black men and stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, just in the last week, we've seen, that she has an issue. I mean, it's so palpable, it's hard to ignore. Let me go ahead and also get Nameless in here. Nameless, go ahead and chime in on this.
To the chat and the folks on the panel.
What's going on, man?
Salute.
I didn't want to say too much. I think a lot of it's been said already. We had a panel not too long ago with Gigi and Sandog, where we kind of covered the nature of what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good show.
Yeah.
Appreciate that, man. And anybody that hasn't seen that, definitely check out the playback. I think that's a lot of good info to help contextualize a lot of these events we're talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to highlight just a key point, just two things I want to say. Number one, it's not black men's responsibility to solve the human condition. It's not.
Elaborate.
What I see happening is that in any instance where human beings are caught being human, when the individual specifically is of the adosocial complex and they have a Y chromosome, they are held to the highest standard of human expectation to meet and possibly exceed the standards to which Christ would set.
Okay.
And if we don't match that under any capacity under the sun, it's as if the meaning of law is worthless if every aspect isn't brought to bear against us.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely ridiculous. And this is a consistent theme. And it's very tiring to see this play out from people who look like we do. Because again, it's a subtle statement to say that we are not permitted to be human. So once again, it is not black men's responsibility to solve the human condition. Number two, I want you to pay attention to the energy that animates these statements. When you get time, pay close attention to the rhetoric that comes out of the Reconstruction era, pre-Black Code South.
Okay.
And I want you to listen to the arguments that are brought up against black men being in a position of power and authority. And what you're going to find is there's some very common themes And in particular, it's animated under this idea of Negro rule. And it's key to understanding the implications that carries with it, because it sets the stage for eugenics, scientific racism.
Yes.
The media you see in that movie Birth of a Nation that came out, what was it, 1915? Somewhere around there. 1914. Okay, I knew it was in that little region right there when the 3K camp got a resurgence. But there's a common denominator here, and I want you to pay attention to how this plays out, both now and in antiquity, which is Black male being together intimately with white women.
Okay.
That has been one of the most primal fears that this country has been fearful of, that almost every conversation that any complaint manifests against Black men has some sort of orientation for fear of that. So there's some sort of punitive action that's enacted by whatever governing body, or we get accused of wanting that and having that projected to us by virtue of people who look like us, Black women in particular. But
hey, I say some sectors of Black men too.
You said what?
And I say some sectors of Black men actually had that same point too with the
exactly Passport Bros. Shout out to them. Anytime there's any instance where a Black man is doing the same thing any other group of men would do, Black men have this unique exception where our sexuality has to be governed as though we're back into the Thomas Jefferson era baby farms and they got to control their bucks on the plantation. It is a tiresome rhetoric, but it plays itself out here and it exacerbates their response to us, allowing for the idea of due process to be disappropriately ignored with us and given to others. While at the same time, again, we're held to this impossible standard of having to solve the human condition. That's really all I wanted to highlight with that.
I appreciate
you know what's so crazy about that? Didn't they make the Mann Act specifically for Jack Johnson during his day and era because of his chaperoning with white women in his day and age? They made a whole entire law for him.
Yeah. And they used that Mann Act on R. Kelly as well. That was what he was actually convicted of.
And Chuck Berry. But
I was just about to say Chuck Berry.
But for some reason, we have Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis Presley, who coincidentally, him and R. Kelly do have the same birthday and have the same kind of pattern and what kind of women they like to go ahead and be with. He was never charged nor convicted of basically being with Priscilla Presley, nor was Jerry Lee Lewis, even though he did something more lascivious by marrying his 13-year-old cousin.
That's all I wanted to contribute, family. Thanks for having me up, Doc.
Hey, man,
you guys enjoy the rest of your evening.
The same, brother.
Something I think was interesting about the exchange between Stephen A. Smith and Malika is that when Malika was speaking to Stephen, she wasn't actually talking to him, but her conceptualization of who he was supposed to be, right? And so she was speaking to, when she was talking, she was like, well, this is what we're not going to do. And this is what she didn't use the words I feel, but she said, this is what I heard, this is what I interpret. And, we know that he corrected her and she didn't even acknowledge that because and that's a common trope that we find among many feminists, even, for example, Professor Crunk does it all the time, but they will speak to a concept of what they'll speak to a concept of what their views of what a man is instead of men that are actually there. And so when men begin speaking, oh no, that's not what you're saying. This is what I hear you saying. And so this is what I've heard, or this is what I've interpreted. That's what it is. Like that's what the reality is. And so what I think was also interesting is not just that aspect, because many of us here are familiar with it, but the juxtaposition of her speaking at that concept and Stephen A.'s disengagement, right? Disengagement theory in social science particularly targets older people and how they may, with time, disengage from society. But I think we're seeing that as an aspect of the Black masculinist turn, where one key point of disengagement theory is that as a person begins to disengage, they increasingly are freed from social norms which guide their interactions. and they lose touch with norms and that reinforce and fuels the process of disengagement. And so at this point, I believe many Black men are beginning to disengage from the idea of being polite to or placating Black feminists, because there is no benefit to those interactions. It's only had deleterious outcomes. So if you look at Stephen A. before, he he spoke about how poorly women were treated. He even went on about Bill Clinton. I mean, he's for all intents and purposes, he's been pretty feminist before, right? He came under attack for a comment he made about women fighting in the UFC, but for the most part, he's been pretty consistent with his semi-feminist leanings. And so for him to correct her, instead of trying to coddle her, you even have cases where men will try and provide a way out. It's like, oh, well, maybe you meant this, or oh, I can understand how you thought that. But instead, he didn't try to give her a way out. He just let her hold that out, right? And we're beginning to see that more and more with Black men. We can see that now with how Stacey Abrams was let down in the polls. So Black men are beginning to disengage, and that is, I believe, an aspect of the Black masculinist turn. There's the turn in the sense that these men are doing something or saying something unapologetically, and that's a clear indication of the turn. And I believe something you commented on before, that you spoke about before, is also this aspect of disengagement, this slow withdrawal. The brother that was on here earlier said I mean, if they try to ask him to reach for something on the shelf, he just keeps it moving. I mean, that's a form of disengagement, right? And we really have to. Well, I mean, we on this panel, we know why, but I think as a society, and especially for Black women who are most affected by this, they're really going to have to begin to ask themselves, what's the cause of this disengagement, and learn to engage Black men instead of engaging their concept of who they think we are.
As assimilationist as Stephen A. has shown himself to be over the years, one thing that came forth was the fact that the brother is an alpha Black male. And that's one of the things that Malika obviously didn't take into account. That's what came forth when she tried to put him in check like that. He's like, no, you ain't telling me to stop on my show.
Right.
Here's something else I noticed, though. Stephen A. was actually taken up for some of the other women in the organizations, but when Malika got on, she acted like he was actually, like you said, it's like she was speaking to another person, like he was being condescending to women. But if you actually go back and listen, Stephen A. was taken up for the other women involved because, at the time, nobody knew who it was. And she still came in there like, he was being misogynist. I'm like, okay.
It was like she was trying to collectively check all of us through him.
I mean, that's
you know what I mean?
How Black women, particularly Black feminists, operate. They don't actually listen to anything that's being said. Once they have a narrative that's set in their mind and they want to speak it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if you're on their side. Essentially, if they need to, they will make you the butt of their joke or of their negative speech. And essentially, what we're missing too is that we have to look at how these women who are brought in to have this hostile takeover, essentially, it's of sports and of domains that are essentially Black male, right? These things are not done in white male dominated areas. They're usually done where you have a preponderance of Black men who have some sense of power, because this is where the emasculation happens. The Willie Lynch, whether you believe that or not, it's still a principle that is being used. They're taking the highest male that they can find, and they're trying to bring them low. So essentially, that's telling all black men who are below that, hey, if these men can't get a break, you damn sure won't get one.
And that's an interesting concept, because that was something that I forgot the article that you read earlier, where the brother he used the term matriarchy, but talked about that non-hostile takeover. And it's interesting, because when you think about this, when you had the Negro Leagues, you didn't really see this type of stuff, right? When Black men were digging it up from the ground, they had to, pull together resources, form their own leagues. When Black men entered these leagues, and through their merit and their abilities, were able to rise the ranks, you didn't really see this type of behavior. But now that things have become easier, now that there's these policies in place that help to promote them, now you suddenly find them coming in. I remember there was a group, just as an example, that was called Black Films Rock or something like that, and Marcus was there as well, and we were talking about these films, and they were saying, well, Black men had this privilege. There's in filmmaking, because Black men were the majority of filmmakers up until this point. And we pointed out, Marcus pointed out, that most of the original Black male filmmakers all pulled up that money. I mean, going back to to the early 1900s, they pulled all that money together. Those are films they funded themselves, right? They didn't get any organizational, institutional help, right? That was much later, and even then, Black men barely got a chance. And so now, you're seeing Black girls, or Black women get into these roles. And so that's the same thing we're seeing here, where Black men pretty much fought against racism in order to get into these. They fought against discrimination and succeeded. And now that they've kind of subdued and tamed the beast, now these feminists are coming in and attacking them as if they were patriarchs, as if as if this was something that was just handed to them.
Right.
It's fascinating.
See,
Well,
I remember
that's fear, though. Go ahead, Marcus.
I remember that conversation is I just walked back in the house from getting my food. I remember that conversation that me and Doc had a conversation similar to that. Not only did Black men put their own money together for films, they still do. They still do. Not only that, but the films that Black woman that they were talking about in that group was financed by her husband.
Okay.
I remember that conversation like it was yesterday. You had this guy, going at me, and I think, was it both of us?
Yep.
Debating with this guy. Yeah. He tried to make us out to be misogynist, or you tried to take away from her, her achievements and this and that and the other. I'm like, no, I'm calling it what it is, bro. At the end of the day, I think what happened with her is she was killed, but he tried to make it as if she was killed over the movies or the film she was making. I was asking him, did her death have anything to do with the films? But at the end of the day, like the conversation was pretty much about what we're talking about right now. It was a dangerous thing at that time to put out not only films, but films that had to do with the struggle of Black people. And people, men were getting, terrorized and killed and things of that nature over this stuff. And I guess he tried to put her in the conversation as someone who went through this also. But, there's no consensus of women that were at the time doing this type of stuff and were putting their lives in danger.
Right.
But it was a really out of context, bad example that he was making to make that argument. And then, he tried to, do all the, the shaming and this and that to try to, steer the conversation in another direction. But it wasn't working because, this is not something that you can just talk to me about like I don't know. But I agree with my man Adam. It's all these women are jumping in the game now that it's an easy thing to do. They've been enabled to do so. We've created this world where they can do that. You understand what I'm saying? We've created the space for this to happen. And as time goes on, there's going to be a lot of pushback on this stuff, man. Again, I feel like Stephen A. walked it back a little bit in his response to her. He didn't go as hard as he could have.
Right.
But at least he responded in a way that he doesn't usually respond, because usually he has to play it cool, because I think at one point he had gotten into some heat behind something similar to this, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's apologized for a lot of it. Could be many times because he's apologized so much for shit.
Yeah.
Well, let me.
He could apologize, but she can't apologize to him. She forgave herself.
It was cool. Even if he walked it back a little bit, it was actually cool to see him at least stand his ground a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what resonated with brothers. Even brothers that don't routinely watch the show. I saw, enlivened by that. And I think we're seeing this in different circles. I think Adam hit on this a little bit earlier, whether we're talking about Ice Cube and the Cocktails with Queens, whether we're talking about the responses to Stacey Abrams, even some of the responses to, what's her name? I think it's Karen Bass in LA. We're seeing Black men starting to speak up in different environments.
What about that Tammy Mack situation?
Huh?
What about that Tammy Mack situation with Dr. Umar too?
Exactly right. So we're starting to see Black men speaking up in ways that we haven't seen in previous decades, and it's inspiring. But it's a question of where this is going to go, where we're going to take it to. But I want to get you guys' responses, more particularly to Jason Whitlock's piece on Malika Andrews, matriarchal culture in the ESPN, and men's responsibility, and some of his statements about that. Anybody have any thoughts about this piece I read earlier?
Let me first go ahead and say that Mr. Whitlock boxed very, very cleverly with his words, because that was I was laughing my behind off as you was reading it, Dr. T. I'm not going to lie, but his assessments was true, and I actually want to throw some in there. Have y'all ever heard of the experiment called Universe 25? With the mice basically being separate. Yeah. So I actually believe that the free thinking straight Black man is the beautiful one mice that's basically being talked about, being pushed out of society, but for some reason they cannot let him go.
Well, one thing I think that's interesting about this, that's the Mouse Utopia. Yep. I believe GS has done several shows on it at this point. But the one thing I think that's interesting about this article, the dialogue itself is very interesting. The use of the term matriarchal was also very interesting. But what this betrays to me is the fact that I believe in certainty that he actually listens to Manosphere content. I think that we'll be surprised at how small, because that's the thing. I think I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I think one thing we should realize in this space is that there is no media. There are no forms of media that target specifically Black men for empowerment and upliftment. The only besides shows like yours, Dr. Johnson, and the channels in the Black manosphere, there is nothing. Right. There is nothing mainstream or even readily available that targets Black men specifically for support and for upliftment. And so, without some ulterior motive or agenda, right? And so, what's fascinating is that because of the uniqueness of this space, people who have way more money than this space are competing for the same group of men, for their attention, right? You have Stacey Abrams that, she basically imitated the title. She tried to get a Black male agenda. It didn't really work. But, that concept came from your channel. That's my assessment of it. That her concept of a Black male agenda, political agenda, came directly from this channel, from the 14-point agenda here. And that connects to the point about Whitlock's commentary here, because, there's no real spaces to find this type of information except on channels like this. And so I think we have a lot more influence than we I think we need to recognize that. Go ahead.
I think you're right. But does anybody remember what I think it was either a year or two ago when Whitlock went on this gave this lecture about, really the gynocracy in the Black community?
Yes. I think it was last year, Dr. T.
Was it last year? Because it blew me out of my chair. I was like, wait a minute. I've never heard him associated with the manosphere. And
was it on Twitter?
Place he could get that.
Was it on Twitter?
No, he did it on his show.
Yeah, there's nowhere else he could have got that from. So,
understand this though, that because understand this though. So Kwame Brown, right? He blew up around the same, right after Kevin Samuels did, right? He was starting to get the same kind of numbers. Kwame Brown to some degree, right? Because Stephen A. Smith was going back and forth with Kwame Brown over the fact of how Stephen A. Smith was used to try to destroy young black males from making the kind of money that they could, coming out of high school. Because essentially, he was sent in to try to demonize, these young players to say that they're really not ready. So he was getting paid to do that. So Stephen A. Smith is an agent of sorts. But what he understands, though, in his dealings with Kwame Brown and everybody, so it's not just Whitlock, everybody is seeing the masculinist turn. Everybody. And they know that if they want to be on the right side of this, and they know Kevin Samuels. Everybody knows. If they saying that they don't know, they lying.
They lying.
Facts.
Man, they know all of us in this space. Let's be real. They know all of us. You can see some of our talking points in some of these sitcoms now.
Yeah, we know how the algorithm works. If they see one of us, they're gonna see all of us eventually.
And
my next thing, I'm pretty sure they're gonna come up with a character that's similar to Kevin in the near future for the people to be appeased to. They're gonna make a TV show or movie.
Yeah, they're gonna manufacture one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the particular vitriol toward Kevin was interesting because it really highlighted how many people didn't want to hear black men being unapologetically honest about how we see the world, how we see ourselves, the things we're going through. They didn't want to hear that. And
they still can't keep Kevin's name out of their mouth.
No, they can't.
You know what I think?
Keep targeting him as a way of deflecting from us or deflecting us from being heard in any serious capacity. That's why, what's her name? Tiffany Cross, was it?
Yes.
She made that kind of flippant comment about, all you guys who follow Tariq Nasheed and Kevin Samuels. But it kind of goes back to what BGS talks about. We laugh about this kind of, the manosphere is kind of like the tar baby. You bring it up and at least 10 people are going to go, I wonder who that is. And they're going to go look it up. So she might have been flippant, but she's just spreading the word and people are asking questions.
Funny story about
you know what I think it is?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. I think it's not so much the manosphere content, it's the women's response to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think even Stephen A. Smith,
part of it,
however he might have moved in the past, he covers sports. And I know he was aware of black women making fun of Kobe Bryant dying in that plane crash with his daughter because he was married to a Hispanic woman. You know that crossed his eyes. You know what I mean? There's no way he didn't hear about that. We all watched them celebrate Kevin Samuels dying and try to lie on him and say that he hated black women when he was trying to tell black women that feminism lied to y'all. This is why you're not getting the results that you want. If you're working at Macy's, you can't think you're going to get a CEO that's making 6 figures. You have to be more realistic than that. You see what I'm saying? And the men are seeing that and they're going, you know what? And initially they were saying that we were just crazy. We hated women for no reason or we couldn't get laid. But once they started seeing how the women were talking to us, they couldn't deny it anymore. So I think that's part of what happened with Stephen A. Smith. I think in that moment, I think a lot of guys is tired, but he has to walk a line because he has a lot of money and sponsors on the table. But guys are getting tired. You're going to see more on the mainstream. And even the Simps, we talk about the Simps. Mark my words, one day the Simps is going to turn their back on them too. Because they do not have a feminine bag to reach into to nurture a relationship. Once the men that these women really want to exploit for money are gone, they're not going to treat the homosexuals any better. They're going to treat them worse. And eventually they're going to turn their back too. Or the alphabet community, they're going to turn their back on them too because their partnership is only a political one. Let's keep these straight men down. Yeah, it's already happened. Let's keep these straight men down so we can get some whatever from this pale face. But all of that's starting to come to an end.
But we to 100 too, and understand that these men understand money, and they saw Kevin Samuels blow up on the financial team, and they understand, right? In any media, black men are the ones who are drawing the fucking money. So he knows he can't alienate black men, because if you alienate black men in entertainment, you don't have entertainment without black men, right? The black women can't carry the shit. White people by themselves, they can't do entertainment like that. Not where it's hot and where it's popping. They understand. They're doing this they see the financial incentive, right? But
Mm.
but not only that,
It's
you
not just
go
about
back
the financials, though.
to MSNBC where you mentioned where she was talking about Kevin Samuels and Tariq Nasheed. Essentially, what you're seeing though is that this old trope is being played out, is that they're afraid that black men are going to become the new white man, right? And so we're getting attacked out of fear that we are going to be white. And as Adam spoke before, there are black women in high places who, in a lot of cases, are leading this charge, right? We look at Susan Rice when
Let me add something to this when you're done.
remember when Snoop Dogg attacked Gayle. Susan Rice was the head of the NSA. This bitch came out and said she's going to sick the fucking federal government on Snoop Dogg because he disrespected Gayle King. You understand what I'm saying? There are women in high places who are afraid that black men, right, SYSBM, passport bros, that we're going to become the new white man, and we're going to put their asses aside, and we're going to be like the Moors, and we're going to fly in a bunch of white female concubines.
This is it, right? Let me add this.
Hold on. I want to get Sarah in here, but real quick, part of what you're talking about when you identify, those high level women, those are also women that work in the corporations that are extending resources only to black women. So when you look at Goldman Sachs and Visa and Google and all these companies, you look deep enough, you'll see a high level, white collar, black female administrator who's initiating these programs from within, and they don't target anybody but other black women. So this is happening in a number of different mediums. But go ahead, Sarah, comment on it.
Okay. To put this in context, I think one thing that we have to understand is that we've always been in a black community, and in particular black men, at war with the United States and their government. They've identified us, black men in particular, through the intelligence community, has identified black men as the number one threat to capitalism. Okay. So that's the context. Understand that the media is the propaganda arm of white supremacy. Okay. Now take note of the fact that the NBA Today, which is the show that Malika Andrews hosts, is about the NBA. The NBA is about 98% black. Who do you think are the primary viewers of NBA Today? That would be black men. So if they were concerned about the viewership, they would have a black man host. Why is it they have a black woman hosting? Okay. So to my point, the earlier point that I made, they use the women as they have done throughout our history. They allow, as Brother Hasan and I have talked about before, they put the woman in a privileged position in comparison to black men. That in and of itself is emasculation. And then they use them by any means necessary, including in the media, to do the same, to emasculate and undermine the black community, because they understand by making the black men weak, they make the black community weak.
Indeed. And I think to that point, I believe that in context of what you just said, in the historical precedent that has been set, when we compare that with the black masculinist turn, this recent phenomenon, we can see why the intensity with black women in these positions is beginning to increase, right? Because when we put this in the context of social dominance theory, we understand that their position is relative to the subjugation of black men, right? The more subjugated black men are, the higher in status and position they rise. And so, but the that's a bargain that requires them to do what? To keep black men in check with the provision of white supremacy. When we look at this disengagement of black men, when we look at black men no longer letting themselves be controlled, we look at the increase in this mommying behavior, right? With Malika, when we look at Tiffany Cross, that mommying behavior is increasing, right? Well, what happened? We all have black moms. What happens when the kid's not doing what she said it's supposed to do? She starts getting more serious. She starts, you better just, that's the type of language she starts to use, right?
Yeah.
First I'll ask you, then I'll tell you, then I'll make you, right? That's kind of how they follow it. But and we see that type of behavior, except in this case, they can't make us do anything.
But
go ahead. Well, and I'll conclude by saying that because they can't, because they're seeing that they're losing control of black men, they're increasing in their efforts to show that they've still got it, boss. I still got it, boss.
It's gonna make it worse.
And
can I add something into what Adam was saying earlier?
Just real quick. What Adam just said that reminded me of. I don't know if any of you guys had this experience, but it may have happened it was anywhere between 12 and 15. The last time you might have got a whooping from your mother, where she realizes that it's not hurting you.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's what what Adam said reminded me of. Just that look, like this is not working.
I knew that's where you was going.
That's when she started trying to call other men to get you.
Continue.
Well, exactly.
Or that daddy she had kicked out. That is when she get that. Hey, come get your son. Even though I took him away from you 15 years ago.
Yeah. Only problem is the white man ain't my father.
I think we've all been through that, man.
Yeah, and you don't even have to say anything. It's just
I didn't. I was raised by a single father. I was unlucky.
Well, I hear you there. Because I got a son, and I ain't going out like that. But I remember that moment. So that's what it reminds me of, and I see it happening. I saw it happening with Malika. I saw it happening with the Cocktails of Queen. I've seen it happen in each of these areas, and they are not understanding why black men are acting this way. When you listen to the conversations that were happening with Stacey Abrams, they didn't understand what's going on with these black men. Oh, it must be that Kevin Samuels. Oh, it must be that Tariq Nasheed. No, Kevin and Tariq are a product of a movement that's been happening. They are just, it's just like the manosphere. The manosphere is not necessarily causing the movement. The manosphere is a manifestation of it. And it's happening in different areas and reinforcing each other in different spaces.
Do you see what happened to Andrew Tate?
Well, yeah.
I want to say this very respectfully, Doctor. I think that they do know why this is happening.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I think that they play dumb, like, why are you guys doing this? But because they're not stupid. Like, I wanted to answer Adam McTowell. I don't think they know that we're not going to become like that dumb article I read years ago, that straight black men or the white men of the black community. It's foolishness. Mm-hmm. Like, everybody knows the temperament of our tribe. We just want to be left alone, have some good food, have our woman, you know what I'm saying? Play with our children. I don't have any children, and I'm not married, you know what I'm saying? I've never get married. These women are crazy. But
I'm about to be 36 with no kids, and I ain't going to be even getting married to none of these.
I'm 39 with no kids, so join the club.
You sound like a man after my own heart, baby.
Dr. Hasan Johnson talked about how young black men said they wanted to get married. I knew I wanted to get married when I was 18. Yeah. When I was becoming a senior in high school, I was like, man,
I knew I was 21.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna give me my little gig. I'm gonna meet me my shorty. You know what I mean? I can't wait to come home and beat that down. You know what I mean? And I just kept meeting hoes. You know what I'm saying? But I wanted to say, they don't feel that we're gonna become the new white men. They know what they've done, and they have no humility to say, you know what, we messed up. You know what I'm saying? They have no humility. What they are afraid of is real quick. What they are afraid of is justice. If we've taken, if we made our bed with this colonizer, what is the repercussions of this? Are them Israelites on the corner? Is what they saying true? Is there a God coming back? Is there going to be a recompense for this? We chose to be with Esau. Are what they saying is true? We're going to have to pay. That's why they're afraid. So instead of turning back, right? Because these guys on the corner telling you death is coming. They got to double down, because what are they going to do? Turn around and be wives now?
Well, that's the
Their
soft
mothers didn't
girl.
teach them how to be
Hey,
wives.
that's what happened in the book of Hosea.
Man,
That's the soft girl.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that's soft girl. Hey, I don't know if I told you, Doc, man. I got a episode. I got a stream coming. Me and this girl gonna discuss the soft girl thing. But I've said it before. On many of my discussions with Gigi, that Black women practice white supremacy. They practice it in the same manner that white men do. They are afraid of the same, repercussions that the white man is afraid of if, our situation were to ever change or ever, rectify itself or whatever. They're afraid of that same thing. They're afraid of that color purple. That's why that image and that dynamic is always pushed out there, because it's to reinforce or remind Black women that if Black men are in control or become patriarchs or are in power, this is what you can expect. They push that idea that through these movies and these TV shows and stuff like that to just keep showing new generations of Black women that probably ain't never experienced none of this stuff in real life.
No, they haven't. But
Right.
they exaggerate it, because when I listen, even to some of my students, when I listen to them talk about what it means to live with a Black man or be with a Black man and what they mean by patriarchy, when you get them to explain it, it comes down to cooking and cleaning, and somehow a conversation about abuse gets thrown in there.
Yeah.
And
And
when you
just
actually
about that.
engage them in a conversation about, okay, but what is it your man asked for? It's usually something related to cooperation, like not arguing all the, you know what I mean? It's, what is communicated by men and what women profess to hear is often two incredible extremes. Like somehow there's some type of slavery that's supposed to jump off in a Black household. And this is going back again. I think this was something Adam laid out earlier. This is something we've been hearing about since, or no, actually it was nameless. This is something we've been hearing about since Reconstruction, right? The idea that if Black men are an authority, if they get to vote, if they get to be heads of household, if they're the primary income winners, that they're going to enslave Black women, even though we've not seen this historically ever, right? And again, when you start pressing what they mean by enslave, it comes down to abuse and cooking and cleaning, and that's their definition of it.
But Dr.
Because you hear. I just want to make a quick comment.
Like a question to a comfort girl, don't it, Dr. T? I mean, they was born to be concubines. That is kind of like a question, right?
Everybody,
we can't hear people, over each other. I'm gonna let Ian go. I'm gonna let Adam go, and then I didn't hear the third person.
I'm about to step down, Dr. T. I'll catch you later.
All right, man. Appreciate you coming up, baby.
All right.
Ian, go make your point, and then we'll go to Adam.
But Dr. T. Hasan, see, part of the problem is that what it becomes is that it's the fear that we are going to become the white man. They haven't seen it, but I've heard on several occasions white women say that they don't want us to become this evil tyrant that the white man has been to his woman. But I was on the Sarah show the other day, right? And what I'm trying to figure out is I don't see proof that overall the white race of men have been abusive to their women. I mean, we hear it, we hear the wokeism, but I haven't seen concrete proof of it. And then when I was thinking about it, I said, understand this, because on the show it was mentioned the Iceman inheritance. Now, so if the white man is the Iceman coming out the caves, what is the white woman? Is she wholesome and pure? Right. So this idea, right, of this fear of becoming the white man, understand, if the white man is a brute, the white woman is a beast. How do you treat a beast? Right. So so you can't put it on to say just on the white man to say, oh, he's just like this. He has this toxic patriarchal mentality, without understanding if you subscribe to the Iceman inheritance theory, you have to understand his woman was a monster too. So there was only one way that the white man could deal with his own woman. If he was less than who he was, the white woman would have ripped him to fucking shreds. And not only that, he would not have had access to his children. Because what do wild women do? As we know from the black community, what do wild women do? Right? We know the stats in Nigeria, and we know the stats over in Jamaica. They have sex with whoever they want, and you have paternity that's not determined, because they will not allow you to carry on a lineage honestly and in good faith. So the white man dealt with the beast of his woman the way that she should have been dealt with. So there is no fear. If you act accordingly, if you act civilized, understand your man is going to act civilized as well. So I'm tired of hearing the fear and this shaming. Oh, you're going to be like the white man, but I don't see anything wrong with how the white man dealt with his beast of a woman. And I'll land there.
That is a
hold on.
ridiculously fire argument. That's all I
Hold
want
on.
to say.
Okay, let's go, Adam. Adam, get your point in, and we're at the 2-hour mark. So I'm gonna have y'all give your closing thoughts, and please make sure to plug what you're doing before you check out, so people can support you. Go ahead, Adam.
Also, I agree with keep it 100 on that. That was some fire right there. I think in the context of the topic of the show today, it was just interesting. Even with what the conversation you and Keep It 100 were having earlier. Even though many of these women haven't actually experienced these things. In fact, I've noticed that many of the very women who have never actually experienced this alleged abuse of a black man in their family, they can tell you about actual experiences they've seen of black women abusing black women in their family.
Yeah.
They told me plenty of times, oh, well, I hit that dude because he was doing that, or what they did, or what, oh, well, my mom, when she went and did this. And they can tell you about stuff that women have actually done in their family, but they can't actually point to an experience that they've actually seen a black man do the same thing. Right. And that's that, how feminism kind of, it trains that solipsism in there, right? Where, her perception of reality is more important because only her mind is sure to exist, and no one else's mind is certain to exist. And so what she thinks to be true is true because that's the only thing she can trust, right? And that's how this that's one of the fallacies or problems with feminist theory. But in regards to the Malikas, the Tiffany's, and even the Stacey Abrams. Right, I believe a lot of these black women understand, and Savre was talking about this in the comment section about how feminism, and particularly black feminism, was a CIA movement. I mean, at the end of the day, they understand that they know what their position is, right? They know what role that they're playing in the system with white supremacy, either consciously or unconsciously. Oh, there we go. All of them, right? All of them are enemies of black men, as you said. But what's interesting is they all understand that their positions are in jeopardy. Right, because they know why they're there. You're there to do exactly what Malika did, to tell black men what they can and can't do, to control them, to suppress these men. And you're one of the consequences of if you look at it in terms of chaos theory, how small changes on one side of an equation can have huge implications later on. When we look at this in the context of the lowering marriage rates, the way that black women have used the family courts to keep black men away from their children, you've created this environment, and black women were a part of this, where they created this environment where black men were distanced from black women, right? So you can't control black men through black women because black men are married to black women, because the marriage rates are abysmal. You can't control black men through black women because they're living in the same households, because they aren't. You can't control black men through black women because they're separated from the children due to the family courts, right? So now you've created these two distinct groups where the women are, even academically, like they have more degrees. Black women live in more urban areas, and black men, even though they live in urban areas, they do spread to more rural areas. So like the way that black men and black women live are distinct. Our experiences in life are distinct. Even our outlooks on life are distinct. Our life expectancy are distinct. All of our experiences in America are distinct and unique. And so there is no relationship there anymore. We're like Kevin Samuels once famously said, we're basically two separate races. We're basically two separate races at this point. And so Black women are now understanding that their positions in these jobs are in jeopardy because they have no relationship to the very men that they're supposed to be there to control. You can't be a vassal king of a people if you don't speak the language of those people.
Mm.
And this is the position they're finding. And so we're going to see an increase in the intensity of these fruitless efforts. And we're going to see more backlash from these men. And it's going to be unfortunate what happens. I'm not saying that they're going to be anything violent or anything crazy is going to happen to these women, but they're going to find themselves out of a job very fast and trying to be as soft as a girl as they can be.
Well, hey man, as usual, I appreciate you when you come through and drop fire. We're gonna slowly and gently pressure Adam and Ian to set up their own channels and get it going because we need to hear more of it. But in relation to something you said a little bit earlier about women actually witnessing female abuse against men, one of the interesting things I've noticed is even if they haven't witnessed male abuse against women, you'll hear fiction invoked. Right. So the color purple becomes a historical event in the imaginations of a number of women that I've heard. So she can talk explicitly about how grandmother hit grandfather in the head with a frying pan. But when you start pressing her about abuse, as we understand it generically, she'll go to fiction if need be. And that somehow still counts as relevant because it's in the culture. It's in pop culture. So I appreciate that, Adam. I'm going to let each person give a closing thought. We're going to go to, Sarah next. And Adam, I'm going to take you down. But, man, I appreciate you coming through. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Before I make my closing comment, I want to make one quick comment about something that that Brother Ian said. If we look at our experience with the white women, of course, we've seen that the white woman has behaved satanically, for lack of a better term, in regards to Black men in particular and Black people overall. We can recount a number of instances where Black men have been accused of some type of harassment of them fallaciously and have been punished for it. So, and I made the point that, that's why it's important for us to not be seeking to try to emulate any part of their paradigm. I want to emphasize the point that feminism is a intelligence operation. Gloria Steinem, who was the proponent of feminism, was a CIA agent. I pointed out how the intelligence community is intent on undermining the Black community, including population control. And Black feminism is an extension of that desire to undermine the Black community. Population control, Black women and Black men aren't getting together now. So there's population control there. Okay. And so, and our women, Black women, are being used in that intelligence operation successfully against us. And so just, be mindful, of that. That's part of the war. And our sisters are being used as either willing or unwilling or unwitting accomplices to this intelligence operation. As for me, if you want to get in touch with me, my website is www.sa-ra.org. I do spiritual counseling, relationship counseling. So any brothers who are like going through any kind of emotional trauma, do reach out for me.
Mm-hmm. All right, brother. Thank you for coming up, man. Appreciate that. Let me go to Ragnar.
Yeah, how you doing? I'm here.
Okay, go ahead and give us your closing thoughts.
I run hot. I mean, I kept myself pretty cool today, but I never advocate. I'm not advocating any violence toward them. What I foresee really happening is because I'm hearing about the eviction rates going up.
Yeah.
What I see happening really is they're probably going to start turning to more crime and things of that nature to feed themselves or whatever, sleeping out of their car. And it's going to be that white man they're going to deal with. That same zaddy they're going to deal with. we never wanted to do nothing to them. I can speak from experience, and I know that a lot of y'all been with women that talk to y'all real crazy. And the last young lady I dealt with, I just talked to her like, listen, you talking to me in a way like you want to fight me or whatever. And like, I'm a man. Like, you talking to me in a way that's getting my testosterone up. And I'm like, yo, calm down. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? And she done told me the same thing I heard growing up from my so-called mother. Oh, I'm not a little white woman. I don't talk like this. I'm not a white man. Like, yo, you told me that your father told you answer people too harshly. And I'm telling you the same thing, right? That's generally how we try to deal with them. And eventually, if it don't change, we just leave. This idea that all of us are just running across state, like, backslapping them and all that. Like, yo, you're lying. You know what I'm saying? And the crazy thing is, the instances when you see like somebody who is abusive, they stay with that guy. They defend that guy. So these women have proven themselves to be backwards. And what I do, and I ain't gonna tell nobody what to do, I just stay away from them. I don't talk to them. I don't engage them. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm at a checkout line, they checking out my stuff, I say hi, but you know what I mean? I'm not helping them with nothing. I'm not putting nothing in your trunk. Because I don't trust you anymore. I don't know where any interaction with you can go anymore. You know what I'm saying? A white woman never called the police on me. Wow. Black woman did. The one that's supposed to be my mother. For me intervening on her harassing her foster daughter. You see what I'm saying? This is the household I grew up in. With one of her foster sons, she told him that he was going to end up dead in the streets like his relatives, because his relatives came from a gang background. That's what y'all been for the past 70 years. So it's like, yo, I'm done. I don't want to put hands to you. You know what I'm saying? You put hands to yourself when you chose this white man. So Pocahontas, enjoy your time with John Smith, and I'm gone.
Oh, man.
Doctor, thank you. This is my first time ever getting on the panel. I've been watching for a long time. Kevin Samuels talked about you, and that's how I came here. So shout out to everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for coming through. Mr. O, let me go ahead and give you the opportunity to close, and then we'll go Ian and then Marcus.
Once again, Dr. T, you know what I'm saying? Me and you all Facebook friends. I will be sharing this after we get off. Again, thanks for letting me come on your panel. Also, I want to go ahead and piggyback. Hold on 1 second.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was getting out the car real quick. So, Motor Words of KS, they basically used him and his death now as basically how y'all gonna basically go back to these women after they just basically destroy the black male image. First with Kevin Samuels, you know what I'm saying? After he died, they basically was like celebrating everything. So how can we even say that we can even come back to the table, even take them seriously after that? And guarantee you, Dr. T, this ain't gonna be the last time that we have to deal with a black man getting lynched in the media for what he says or doesn't says.
Okay. I hear you, man. Appreciate you coming through, man.
Yeah, but that's all I had to say. Thanks again for being on your platform, and salute to the rest of your panel, and have a good night. Peace.
You too, man. Be easy.
Peace.
All right, brother Ian, give us your closing thoughts.
Yeah, man. I mean, the reality is, so they want to destroy all sense of heroism. So they want to keep putting these women in our spaces, and at some point they want us to adopt their language and their tone, right? And they want us to become these individuals that are basically these woke intersectionalists, right? And then once we become woke intersectionalists, listen, they won't need to take us down. We will take ourselves down, and we will police ourselves. So they want to keep these LGBTQ. They want to put these feminist influences. So at some point that they destroy our minds and the way we think, right? So that they won't take us out physically. They take us out mentally. And once we do that, we'll start taking each other out, because that's already being done with a lot of these simps around the world right now, right? Anytime you start talking a little bit and you start holding women accountable, the simps are coming out the woodwork. But understand this, though. I'm tired of this circular argument where it is that when we're holding women accountable, it always goes back to the white man. I'm tired of hearing about the white man. I don't want to talk about the white man, though, because listen, I've been beat up unconscious by the police, right, over a broken taillight on some bullshit. You know, I've been accused of trespassing and accused of wanting to rob a gas station just because I was leaning against the wall, right? So, but at the end of the day, I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about him like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not. You know, at the end of the day, listen, I'm a man. I still have my heroicism, right? My thing is like what was the brother said? He says, the Black Panther, he says, man, you know, if you got the power to take me out, so be it. I'll die that death. You know what I'm saying? But I'm only gonna die once though. So they're not gonna put me in the state of fear where it is I'm too afraid to hold my Black women accountable, because she's gonna say, but what about racism and what about white supremacy? What about it? If I die today by the hands of white supremacy, so be it. But I still die a man, right? I'm not gonna die being pro-Black and less than a man. That's out of the question. I'll land there.
All right, brother. Appreciate you coming through,
you
Ian.
guys. All right, Marcus. Love you, bro.
All
right, man.
Take it easy. Shout out to Ian, who's always been supportive. You usually see him in the chat putting out information. So every now and again, he'll come up and drop a word. So shout out to Ian. Much appreciated. Keep it 100. I'm leaving the banner up so y'all can see how it's spelled. Go to the channel, support the good brother, and we're going to have him plug his next show when he finishes his comments. Give us your closing thoughts about this, man.
All right, I appreciate it. An attorney that we're all familiar with, who shall remain nameless, said, Black women are not your enemy. I beg to differ. Okay. If not, then what does an enemy act like? If they are not the enemy, what does an enemy act like? And I think that Black men who have not come to terms with that need to. They need to. I'm not going to do the not all. We're just going to keep going because, you know, we don't do the not alls with the police and this ones and this ones and this ones. At the end of the day, these women are your enemy. These women are looking to undermine you. I remember, you know, when Meg Thee Stallion first accused Tory Lanez, right? Tory Lanez of shooting her, right? He went online to speak positive about her, right? Because he had to, right? Or at least he thought he did. He had to he felt the need to get online and speak positively about her to make himself not look like a bad guy. And, you know, I've said it before, you know, simp is Black men's default setting. What I would like to see is, you know, because Kev always said, winter's coming. What I would like to see is Black men letting Black women feel the cold of winter. I would like to see that. I would like to see that. I think that a lot of men in this space might subscribe to that. Do I think the masses of Black men will? I don't know. The next generation of Black men is another thing. That is a completely different thing. I'm not sure if this generation of Black men are ready to see Black women in distress.
Well, see, that's one of the things I talked about a little earlier when I was talking about going on Omawale's show. So Omawale and most of the people there are, you know, revolutionary Black nationalists. And so he raised the discussion about Black women's egos, and the men admitted, I had to point it out 4 separate times that the conversation I think we might have spent I don't know if I'm exaggerating. We really might have spent 5 minutes to 2 hours actually talking about the subject. Most of the time, the men themselves could not bring themselves to critique. So if you can't bring yourself critique Black women in a loving correction, because again, this is a revolutionary nationalist channel. They weren't there, quote unquote, bashing. They were there trying to lovingly correct and could not bring themselves to do so. If that's happening in a space that is pro-Black and looking to restore the Black community, what's happening across the board? And what you're raising is that the next generation weren't raised. They don't have the same kind of race loyalty. I'm the child of a Panther. You know what I mean? I grew up in a particular era. By the time I hit 16, we were wearing African medallions and watching Spike Lee movies. And
I remember that.
This sense of, connection with African and Blackness, that's not happening right now.
No.
It's a whole different environment. Watching my son's generation come up, a whole different space. You know what I mean? So the question you put on the table is valid. And I've been talking about this for the longest in terms of Black women being socialized into being colonizing agents, right? Working for the possibility of middle class acceptance at the expense of Black men and boys.
See,
that's what we're seeing.
Right. See, this generation that's coming up, this generation of Black boys is coming up. They were born in the social media reality.
Yes.
Right? Understand, like a lot of us older guys, late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s, late 40s, early 50s, and older, we precede the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of these younger guys, they're from very young, they don't know an existence. They don't know a world without social media.
Yeah.
And they see the stuff that we're seeing.
Right.
From early. So, our generation, you have to convince these guys that these women are like this for the most part. They grew up with their mothers or auntie or whoever having this sort of influence over their belief system. But these kids are growing up seeing all the ratchet shit and, all of this crazy stuff on Twitter. Like they're seeing it in a way that our generation didn't.
Right.
And me and you have had conversations of, when I was young, when I was in high school and stuff like that, I used to say this stuff and people thought I was crazy because, again, what we were, shown and what we believed in these types of things is different than what it is now. I don't have to tell the young kids this stuff. They see the women act it out. They hear what the girls are saying, this and that and the other. They are going to school with these same college girls that we're talking about, that quote unquote hate Black boys or hate Black men, whatever. They see it themselves. Is get to when we don't have to explain it to them. But all this talk about evictions and things of that nature when it comes to the women that are older, closer to our age. I would love to see a reality where Black men say, "Hold that L, hold that." I would like to see that. When I'm on my show, Gigi show, your show, like you guys realize, like I feel like a lot of guys, a lot of times we make unnecessary apologies for the things we say, for our thoughts, etc. And I think it's time to really walk away from that. You guys spoke about it earlier. To walk away from this. I don't mean this, or I don't mean to say this, or like these disclaimers. It's not that we're saying it for them. They're not here. It's just us here, right? But it's almost like
we still apologize even when they're absent.
Right. We have to because we've been taught that's bad. You can't say that.
Right.
And what the guy said earlier, I think it might have been Sarah. One of the guys said, that the simps will turn on them. I don't think so. Understand that when you raise a pup a certain way, they grow into a full-grown dog. It's hard to teach old dogs new tricks. It's real hard to do that. I see guys, get humiliated, disrespected by women, and they still don't turn, man. They still don't turn because they're simping it's like a religion. It's a belief.
Yeah,
They're
it is.
true believers.
Oh, it is. It is. And you know, Dennis calls it the simp chip.
Yeah.
And it's real, you know, in the sense that once you've been raised in that paradigm and you've learned it and spent so many years practicing it, even when you're consciously aware of it, that programming pops up in places you least expect. You are hardwired to make her life easier, to prioritize her feelings, her worldview in ways you're not even always conscious of.
Right.
And it is a difficult process. What you're describing when you talk about them holding an L, I post this stuff on my Facebook page all the time, and you know, because you're there and you see it and you comment. What it looks like to let them hold an L in the environment we're in is when you hear about a mother who snaps and kills her kids. When you hear about, you know, I mean, there's so many instances of it, you know, rape, abuse, murder, shooting boyfriends over arguments. This is what it looks like when you actually let them hold that L and they go to jail for these kind of things, and sometimes they don't, particularly in relation to how we do. But that's yeah, and I just want to put that on the record because you know some people think, well, holding that L means that she might lose her apartment and she has to realize how much you know she may have valued a brother. Yeah, on one level, but understand our feet, you know, as Black folk, in terms of wealth, when you look at the wealth breakdown, our feet are so close to the ground that it really doesn't take much. You know, so despite what we hear in social media and what we see on television, you know, the percentage of Black women making six figures is actually smaller than Black men who make six figures. This shit
Right.
about Black women living their best life, the soft girl, it's bullshit. It's not real. It's goals, it's aspirational talking points, all of that. But when you look at the hardcore economic realities, our feet have always been closer to the ground. The difference between Black men and women, because we do live different qualities of life. One way of looking at the difference is Black men don't have the luxury of fantasy because nobody comes for us. We don't get policy for us. Nobody's creating homeless shelters for Black men. Nobody's coming up with new ways to give Black men money, to support homeless Black men, to find you jobs when you're out of work. That shit is not happening. Black men, for the most part, you know, I'm not talking about everybody, but for the most part, we don't really have an illusion that somebody's coming to get us. You know what I mean? If you lose your job and you don't have a way to pay your rent or your mortgage, Black men are very clear about where that leads you. It doesn't lead you to a shelter. It may lead you under a damn bridge. I hear women that are a month away from being out on the street talking about, I'm still going to find a guy that'll pay all my bills. Above. I mean, this is this kind of fantastical shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I've discussed it before. They have a different relationship with money than we do.
Yes.
Our money comes to us through time, effort, labor, energy, those things, you know.
Sacrifice, yeah.
Yeah, and money comes to them, you know, for the most part, is given to them. You know, a lot of things, especially in this world that men have created for women, that they now feel like they don't need men because of this environment that men built. They expect free resources. Like we've kind of made them feel like they no longer have to pay into the social contract because now the society gives them what they needed from men in patriarchy.
Yes,
this is not a patriarchy.
Right.
But you know, again, I understand what you're saying about what things look like, but there's really no other way. These are things that we didn't have control over either way. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you know, when I say, you know, let the cold hit them, their reactions to that is something that we didn't have say over anyway. Nameless, who was on here earlier, he sent me a piece by Angry Man. And what Angry Man said was real interesting, you know, in reference to how, you know, you know, Black men, I think he used an anomaly of Superman in the courthouse in the explosion.
Oh, okay.
Right. With all of Superman's powers, he couldn't save anybody. The explosion is not going to kill him, but
right.
There was nothing that he could do to save anyone. In that moment, he was powerless.
Mm.
And to be honest, that's our situation here. Like, whether we leave them to freeze or not, there's really nothing that we can do in the situation to make it go one way or another. Like, this is not a ship that we're steering, right? So at the end of the day, to be honest, I'm sorry to say it this way, but whatever they do, whatever reactions they have to, dealing with the distress that's coming their way, is going to have to be casualty of war. Because this is war. It's actually war. It's actually war. And they're going to have to realize, that they need us more than they like to believe that they do.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's actually too late for that, in my opinion. Because again, while this generation can't stand to see these women in distress, the next generation doesn't care. They don't care. And you think it's bad now? Them guys that's coming is going to be even worse. Whether it's white women or non-black women that they go to, next generation is going to be even worse because they see everything that this generation is doing now.
Yeah. Or monkhood. I mean, by the time when you see a 14-year-old monk,
right,
that should tell you something. When he would rather play video games than talk to a girl. There's been a massive shift socially on a macro scale that we're talking about in some respect, but we're not getting to the core of.
Right.
I mean, and that's a major shift. And this is why earlier when I was talking about Malika Andrews or whatever on Stephen A. Smith's show, I said, remember I stopped the video at a certain point and I said, look, because Stephen A. had finished his last comment and he was going to give her a moment to speak. And I stopped right when he was done. And I said, now this would be the point where she needs to apologize. This is the point where she needs to apologize for coming on his show, being disrespectful, so on and so forth. The apology never came. And the reason I said that at that time is it corresponds to what you're saying now in terms of whether or not there's a capacity at play for women to say, oh shit. We have allowed ourselves to be used against our men, against the interest of community for our own advancement, separate from them, even our sons.
Right.
Is there an apology? Is there an acknowledgement? You tell me.
No, ain't nothing coming. And Dawdaw, I did a video on that. He's talking about the prom picture with the black boys with all the white girls.
Okay.
Yeah, I call that the new society, and that's and like I said, that's coming. There's no apology coming. I mean, I remember, this is crazy. I remember talking to my moms. Like, we had a conversation where, we kind of like brought up, or I brought up, the stuff that I had been through with her, and she said, basically she wanted to say, I think she wanted to say, you expecting an apology. What she ended up saying was, I'm not gonna kiss your ass. That's the words that she used.
Wow.
And that's
wow.
what they think apologizing is.
Yes.
They look at apologizing as kissing our ass. This is my mother, bro. Yeah. This is what she said to me. She said, I'm not gonna kiss your ass. Right? But I think I said something to her in the effect of like, I don't need it. I'm over it. Right? I'm past that. Understand that, I'm at the point where, whether it be her or whether it be just women in general, like, whatever you dealing with, whatever you brought onto yourself, I'm ready to watch you burn. Right? But for whatever choices that you've made. And again, I would like to see men do that. Men are always rescuing, black men are always rescuing black women from the lesson. They're always rescuing them from the lesson. no apology, nothing that deserved it, because this is our issue. Black women are black man's kryptonite, not white women. We don't care what happens to white women. They're not our kryptonite. Black women are black men's kryptonite. And until we accept the idea that these women, if the same winter were to visit black men, they would let us freeze. Actually, they would let us burn. They would let us burn. They will watch you. They will watch you die. Earlier, somebody talking about, black women are afraid, that we would enslave black women. They've already enslaved us. It's already happened. So we know what the other thing is, the reality. Like, some of these girls ain't lived the reality, but they seen the reality of us being abused. There are people old enough that they remember somebody in their family had black male slaves. That's real. That ain't fiction. They got to go to movies to make stuff up, to respond or counteract realities. I've seen more men get hands put on them than women in the black community, black America, whatever. Because the whole world will crumble on you. You put your hands up to a female.
Oh yeah, quick.
That's a female.
Yeah, quick.
Right.
Real quick.
So we know what it is. So, just to wrap it up, at the end of the day, man, we have to realize, like, look, this love thy enemy shit that we're on. We got to let that go, man. It's not going to work. We can't keep enabling. Look at black women at this point as the oppressor. You can't enable the oppressor. When people say oppressor, you think white man. This is the oppressor. And I think that black men have that we're struggling to see that, right? So at any rate, tomorrow I'm trying to put together a situation where I'm speaking to this girl that I know her for a long time, because me and her had a very interesting conversation about, the soft girl thing, man. And that'll be entertaining. But this Saturday, The Great Escape, man.
Okay.
The Great Escape. I'm with Ron. Ron says that America is a toxic environment for black men, and I'm inclined to agree.
You talking about Dr. Ronald Neal?
Yes, sir. I'm inclined to agree. I think that we talk about passport movements and the effect of, going, like, I don't, when I hear passport bros talk, I don't know whether they mean going to meet some girl out there or date or whatever, or if they talking about, hey man, I'm trying to find a wife out there or trying to start a life out there. I don't know. I think it's varying degrees of guys that say, hey, I'm going to do this or this or this or this or this. But I think that as many, guys who can, as many men who can abandon ship, man. Again, I'm going to be talking about politics, pickup artists, the game coaches, all of that Saturday night, man. And I'm not going to be nice about it. I'm calling these guys names, man, because at this point, this environment, man, this environment is actually not good for our health, man.
On multiple levels.
Right.
Yeah.
Ship sink, man.
I mean, Coolio just passed. He wasn't even, so I hear you on multiple levels.
Right.
But I appreciate you coming through, man. Y'all check out Keep It 100. What you want to give them the time?
6 p.m. West Coast, 9 p.m. East Coast.
All right.
Appreciate if you follow, you'll get the notification. So hit the subscribe, hit the bell. It'll be all up there, man.
Okay.
So East Coast, 9 p.m. East Coast.
And y'all peep the spelling of the name. Check it out. Appreciate you coming through, man.
No doubt, as always, man. Anytime.
Peace.
Peace.
Now, something to kind of close on, because we're dealing with a manufactured contempt for black men. This doesn't come out of nowhere. This is fairly old. But I was sent this today, a little bit earlier, and trying to make sure I get it on the screen because I want you guys to see it. So hopefully you can hear it. Hopefully it'll play. Let me see if this is it. Here we go. Oh, shoot. There's no sound. Damn it. There we go. Let me. Damn it. Okay, hold on. I don't understand what it is. Shit. I apologize. I thought this would play pretty smoothly, especially since it's playing through here and I have no idea why you guys can't hear it. But that said, I'll try and find a way to post it separately on my channel, hopefully after this, because you really do need to hear it. But I do apologize. I can never tell what the hell is not going to work until I get it on the damn screen. So my apologies to Ollie. Didn't realize there wasn't any sound. Thought we had finally resolved it. Here we go. Same shit, different day. Anyway, y'all have a good one. Appreciate y'all supporting the show. All right. Peace. I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unintelligent henchmen, valueless assassins, pro bono mercenaries, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, emotional tampons, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic and selfish and unrealistic needs. You define your worth. Peace.